I don't even know when this thing goes live. We might be.
This is a party.
Yeah, we could definitely re-go over some of that because it's also applicable to the Cybertruck 100%.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're live. Hello, welcome in. Come on in, everybody. Before it even gets to earnings, we've posted a top comment in the chat. Let me know if you can see it, and let me know if you can hear me and see us. There is a pinned comment with a Google form. It's safe. We're not going to get your password or nothing. It's completely optional. Don't worry. We don't need your social security number. This is just a data exercise because we have a bunch of data nerds and geeks in the Tesla community. So go in.
We promise it's not an NFT mint link.
That's right. That's right. So go in, post your best estimate, whatever you think. None of the fields are required. If you feel comfortable writing out your username at the end in the chat or whatever, we're going to use that to shout you out, whoever's closest to the actual earnings. And then Mike, once he's back from moving his car, he's going to pull up a chart, and we're going to track everyone's estimations live up to earnings release, and then we're going to go through earnings and talk about it, and this thing's going to go like 4 hours. So I hope you brought some popcorn. Please don't feel forced to stay here all 4 hours. A bunch of great people are live streaming. Feel free to jump around. We're not going to keep you hostage, but we're going to have a big party here. So anyway, make sure you go do that, and then Ishan and Hans, I'll let you kind of keep going on your conversation because they're talking about the Ford F-150 and the Cybertruck and Rivian and all that stuff. So I'll shut up. Go for it.
I heard there was a party.
Yes, you came to the right place. Party.
Yeah, so do you just want to reset the context, Ishan, for what the discussion that we were having?
Sure, yeah. The conversation's really around, so Sandy Munro spoke about how expensive it is to actually build the Rivian, and don't remember the exact number, but I think it was around $80,000, maybe more. And we were sort of discussing, is Ford going to be able to profitably make the F-150 or not, with consideration to the fact that we have this number for the Rivian. And we were talking about how it may or may not be more expensive to build the electrical architecture, the battery pack, etc., for the F-150, given the number of electrical outlets, the requirement of sustained current, that's amperage and power draw from the battery pack to power construction equipment, as opposed to the peak power draw for acceleration that other EVs support. Extra cost to actually have a more robust heat wicking system from the battery pack if you're using construction equipment, etc. Hans, I love that dispenser and I love the beer.
Oh, the physics is so good. My wife got it for me for Christmas last year, and I have used it religiously ever since. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to beat that at home.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I'll probably hop over in 10 and go grab myself. But yeah, so yeah, this was the context of the conversation that we'll have.
Yeah, and so we were talking about just the number of outlets that the F-150 is slated to have, and the question that we were discussing was whether or not they could potentially be exceeding the max current draw on the F-150 through all those accessory outlets that they would have under a high acceleration event for the F-150. And without stopping to do some actual math, it's hard to say. I would kind of doubt that they would. But yeah, Ishan had made a good point that even if they're not exceeding the max current draw on the accessory plugs, that if you've got a sustained load that is more than driving, that's a pretty significant load on the battery. And it has pretty significant implications also for cycle life on the battery as well. But then also anything that you're going to have to do to dissipate heat, and lots of different architectural implications for a battery and a battery management system in that scenario. So, but yeah, all of this really, it also applies to the Cybertruck because, the Cybertruck will also have a lot of accessory power that's available on it. And, that's something to think about if you're planning to get a Cybertruck for construction style use and you're going to be running a bunch of power tools off of it, that, those are actual battery cycles that you're putting on your vehicle. And so hopefully with the 4680 ramp, by that time, they'll have the reliability down on those batteries to a point where they are 500,000, a million mile batteries, to where those cycle life hits are not something that you have to be too worried about as a user.
True. Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it is true that people are willing to dish out a lot of money on pickup trucks, but also, and especially when in the early stages when you're probably not at scale. I think it's gonna be a little hard to actually make a lot of profit on the Lightning. And of course, see, the more trucks on the market, the more the market's going to be split. I'm not saying that there is a demand issue, but ultimately, those who are probably willing to pay 20-30% above what an ICE pickup truck would cost. Yeah, so there's definitely a bit of pressure that will come in. I just think that there may just be enough demand at this point in time to have a high sticker price and make a profit that way. Not selling F-150s at $80,000, but more like $150,000. And
Yeah.
anyway,
Yep.
the Ford dealers are doing a lot of this on their own, so might as well Ford do it on their end as well. So yeah, I think for their initial production they'll be able to sell it at 150 to 180 grand as well, considering all the gas savings. So yeah, that aspect is there.
Hey, Nicholas. Yeah, I'd love to hear your take on this as an actual marine engineer who's probably a little bit more solid on some of the things that we're talking about here. And welcome to the party today. Glad to have you here.
Welcome.
Do you want to give yourself a quick intro, Nick, just to make sure everybody knows who you are?
Well, can you guys hear me? Let's start there.
Yeah.
You're soft.
Oh,
but
right, man.
Yeah.
This was a mission. For some reason, my Chrome browser is not liking StreamYard. I had to download Firefox. So that was odd.
Wow.
Yeah, all my privacies and everything are good. So I don't know what's going on there. So I'll give you a quick intro and then I didn't hear the question, Hans, or what was being discussed. So I was just trying to figure out my stuff. So, so my name's Nicholas Gibbs. My background is in mechanical electrical engineering. Now I'm in software engineering. Weird transition. So I have my own channel called Investing Against the Grain. Been doing it for about a year now. And really, the whole point of my channel is to take my two passions, investing and engineering, and somehow oddly bring them together. And Tesla kind of does that from mechanical, electrical to software. And obviously, we're all invested in Tesla. So that's the very quick, short version of that.
Awesome. Yeah, the question that we were discussing was just the the design decisions that they're having to make for the battery and battery management system in these electric pickups like the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Cybertruck, and also the implications that has on, I guess really the big question is, do you think that Ford can produce at the beginning, the higher level trims of the F-150 Lightning at a profitable gross margin to where that's a vehicle that they can use to really start their ramp to an EV transition?
Yeah. So that's interesting. And, I don't want to sound disparaging when I talk about this. I think Ford is, as far as U.S. makers, the only one who's actually seems to be trying to take decent steps towards it. But just looking at the Mach-E first, the Mach-E, smaller battery, arguably, or not even arguably, has more aerodynamics to it. So definitely, drag coefficient is better with that. And now the Mach-E, according to Jim Farley, is not even profitable. So when I look at that, and that's arguably a much easier challenge than the pickup truck, and don't take my word for it, Elon said it. Elon said pickup trucks are extremely hard. So when I hear Elon say that, when I hear Jim Farley say that about the Mach-E, I mean, that's where you got to start. Even think about the F-150. Now, I think it's pretty normal to have a loss on a new product, very much how everyone has taken Elon's words about Berlin, Austin out of context when it comes to, burning money, but it's new, right? So until you get up to volume production, you're not going to be really seeing any efficiencies, or you shouldn't expect to see a lot of profitability. But if they're having this much trouble with the Mach-E, and we've seen the Mach-E ramp, it's pretty, for lack of a better word, pathetic. It is. I mean, I was a big Mustang lover to begin with, and so I have my own issues with the form factor. I don't think it's a Mustang. But if you just look at Mustang sales as a whole, they've been declining exponentially for Ford for the last decade. And so just looking at it from that lens and understanding the challenge they have with that, then you look at the F-150, it's really hard to think that they're going to get to profitability anytime soon, even with the higher trim. I mean, I don't think it's not designed to be an EV. I mean, if you look at it, it doesn't look like they took any considerations with aerodynamics. Whereas you look at the Cybertruck, it's built based off physics, right? Physics dictated its form factor, which is kind of rare to see a company do that. And then everything. I mean, I think I caught the tail end of what people were saying regarding all the extra power outlets, the cycles it's taking. That's such a crazy part that nobody talks about. Okay, cool. You have all these outlets. Like, that's kind of gimmicky, but even if people use that, even if they use the air compressor, you know what that's going to do to your battery? It's going to drain it like crazy. And then what happens, right? So it's not, they almost act like it's a replacement for generators on sites, and it's not. It won't be. You won't see people hooking up their welding machines to it. You won't see people using this as the new generator on site. It won't happen. And I just feel like there's a lot of marketing fluff in that, and people who've never been in the field or actually had to do these real life things. Now, sure, for a tailgate, yeah, sure, that's cool. We can have outlet, hook up a TV, but I just don't see the pragmatism in it. And if they can't do it with the Mach-E to be profitable, I don't see it with the F-150 in its current form factor. But I hope they prove me wrong.
One question to take it back just a little bit to the comments that you're making about the Mustang. How much of the Mustang's declining sales would you attribute directly to Tesla, the Model S, and the Model 3? Like, how do you justify buying a Mustang when a Model 3 is faster, cooler, and more future-proof?
Yeah, it's fun. So my father, he's out in Texas right now for work, and he was in a Model 3. And he's always talking about his BMW M5 that he used to have and all this. And the person he was with was in there, and just hearing my dad talk about, he knows, my passion for Tesla and all that. And I've even got him to invest in Tesla. But the person he was with all of a sudden floored it while we were on the phone, and the words that came out of his mouth, I'm not going to repeat on here, but literally the next comments out of his mouth was, "Whoa, my M5 couldn't do this. This is crazy." Next words were, "I might have to get one of these." And I said to him, "You see, that is why we're invested right there. Like, there's no replacing that." And so, yeah, when you compare to even a V8 5.0 liter Mustang, it's not even close. Not even. Again, I had one. It's the only car I ever actually, only ICE car I ever actually owned. It was a 5.0 liter Mustang, and no, it can't even hold a candle. So I don't know how much it is part of, or the attrition is due to the Model 3 and Model Y. I actually don't think it's much to do with it. I think the vehicle and the form factor has just become unpopular. It was a 2-door, 4-seater, where the back seat were essentially unusable, and for bang for the buck performance, maybe nowadays we could attribute the lack of people wanting to buy it to the 3 and Y, but I think it was just dying before that. It's beautiful form factor, it's legendary, it's iconic, but it became something where you saw a lot more women wanting to buy it, and that's not to be disparaging, but it's, traditionally pony cars were geared towards masculine men, right? You got Challengers, you got Chargers, we got Mustangs, and then it became, more geared towards women. That's where the 6-cylinder came in, and I just think the popularity just tailed off, and which is wild to me why they chose a Mustang to be the form factor for their EV. I mean, I could go on that all day. That I have huge issues with that. I love the iconic Mustang look. Don't like what I see there. And I don't know what's up with these light bars on. All these cars are just plastic and glued on. They look silly, especially when you've seen the Cybertruck light bar. Like that's a light bar, which I hope they keep.
Real
Has
quick,
anybody seen some of the new Hyundais?
Sorry, let me just interrupt real quick. So it's 3:01. Market's closed. We closed at 742.50, up 0.8%. I'm waiting for the earnings release to come out. There's a pinned comment in the chat, in the comment section. Post your best guess in that form. We'll be tracking it here as the entries come through. And then once the earnings gets released, we'll see who's the closest, and the person who's closest gets the shout out. But go ahead and put your entries in there because we want to see where the guesstimates are. So I have it pinned at the top of the comment section, and I also reposted it. So anyway, go for it.
And it's only like 4 questions or 5 questions. So
yeah, it's super quick, 2 minutes. You don't need your social security number. It's like 2 seconds. You don't even have to give us how tall you are. You just got to put your numbers in there. All right. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go grab my beer because I want to have beer when we open it. See you in 5.
Oh, I'm gonna follow suit. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish my tea and then I'm gonna get my beer. Yeah. How many entries we got so far, Mike?
There's 5.
Okay. All right, let's see if we can get it up to 500.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't go over 1,000 because I didn't build it for that.
That's all right. If it goes over 1,000, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have. How's everybody feeling? Do you guys? I always get like pre-earnings jitters. I don't know why. I always get a little nervous. Does anyone else feel that way too, or am I just really weird? Do you guys get any jitters?
I don't know.
Like,
No, yeah.
no, I'm weird.
I don't. I feel jitters, but I don't think it's because of the earnings. I think it's because of like, just being on stream. I don't know.
Okay. That's funny. Do we know if Elon's going to be on the call? Has he said if he's going to be on or not?
I don't think we know.
I haven't heard.
I mean,
Okay.
I haven't heard. I haven't looked today though.
I wonder if he's going to be on. I think there's a chance. I think last time he said yes. I mean, I guess last time he did say if he's going to be or not going to be on the call, so he hasn't explicitly said if he's not going to be on the call. So I guess he could theoretically be on the call.
I think he's not going to be on the call. He's joining our live stream, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, no, he's going to be here. Yeah, no, you're right. That's why he's in the thumbnail. Obviously, why would I put him on the thumbnail unless he's coming? Come on, come on now. So, what kind of
moving
beer are you
after
guys
hours.
drinking? Are we? All right, we're up
little bit.
0.4.
Yep.
Oh, junk. So I had to jump up to 754. Does somebody? Is this out? Not yet.
I'm
What are you guys
a
drinking?
hazy IPA.
Nice. Bye.
I'm drinking a mint herbal tea.
Boatswain? I don't know. I didn't buy it.
Nice. Yeah, I've got a sipping pretty fruited sour.
We're out. Deck's out.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Okay.
wow, nice.
Here we go.
That was quick.
Cash flow of 621 million. 0.8 billion increase in our cash and cash equivalents. 2.5 billion GAAP operating income. 14.6% operating margin. 2.3 billion GAAP net income. 2.6 billion non-GAAP. 27.9% GAAP margin. Okay. More than 1,000 vehicles produced in a single week at Giga Berlin. Highest solar deployment in over 4 years. Okay. So there was definitely a drop in gross margin in Q2 of 2022. Let's see what the market's doing so far. Okay, we're up
RIP
2%.
short test like.
Yeah.
Already up to 760.
Yeah, so we're up to 760 already, though. So it looks like the market so far likes their report. I think this number here,
27.9, that 27.9 to me was huge. Anything over 26%, I thought was going to be bullish for Tesla.
Yeah, only 2% drop in gross margin from last quarter, given the Shanghai shutdown, is incredible.
yeah. Well, it's 4%, right? I think, or almost 5%. I think Q1 2022 was 32. Or are you using a different metric to measure that?
I thought it was 30, but am I thinking of
I think 30
X
excluding.
credits? Okay.
Yeah.
I should stop accepting responses for the form, right?
Yeah. Lock it down.
Okay, lockdown.
Okay.
I think this is a huge deal too, because people like Gordon Johnson always say the only reason Tesla has these margins because of Shanghai. And this kind of, disputes that. Shows it's not just Shanghai, it's their operational efficiency.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Total gap gross margin 25. So that's total business. Operating margin of 14.6, which I find still to be. So the one thing that jumps out to me. So last year Q2 with no shutdowns, they were 11% operating margin. Q2 this year with pretty severe shutdowns in Shanghai, they're still able to have a 14.6% operating margin, which matches their Q4 2021 operating margin where they shipped a record number of cars. So they were able to squeeze out similar operating margins versus Q4 2021, where they were basically had maximum operating leverage at that time. Because this is before, like this is a kind of crazy number if you really think about it. Shanghai shut down, Berlin
Bitcoin
isn't ramped, Austin's not ramped, Bitcoin.
Yep.
Right? Is Bitcoin in this number here in the 14.6? The impairment charge?
It should be.
Okay. EBITDA margin of 22.4. Okay. I'm just going to quickly scan through this, and then we can kind of focus in each page. So total revenue grew 42% year over year in Q2 to 16.9. So the pluses were growth in vehicle deliveries, increased average selling price, and growth in other parts of the business. So they're calling this out as a line item, which is interesting. Profitability. Our operating income improved year over year to 2.5 billion, resulting in a 14.6 operating margin. Increased ASPs, growth in vehicle deliveries, profit growth in other parts of the business, lower stock-based compensation expense. Negatives were higher material, commodity, logistics, and expedite. So that's a lot of inflation. Higher per unit fixed costs in Shanghai due to shutdowns. Negative Forex impact, Bitcoin impairment. Okay. Quarter end cash and cash. Sorry, go ahead.
What's FX impact?
Foreign exchange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like basically like changing money from one currency to another, essentially.
Yeah.
Quarter end cash equivalents, and short-term marketable securities increased sequentially by 902 million to 18.9. So they Bitcoin impairment charge, Shanghai shutdown, higher raw material, commodity, logistics, expedite cost, and negative FX impact. Yet you're adding almost $1 billion to your balance sheet. Nice.
Well, the Bitcoin impairment charge doesn't have any effect on that.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Thanks for that call out. As of the end of Q2, we have converted approximately 75% of our Bitcoin purchases into fiat. Conversions in Q2 added 936 million. Okay,
Ooh.
so they sold 75% of their Bitcoin. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
Sounds like it. Here comes the Bitcoin community.
Okay. Elon, you better go run.
Yeah.
Maxis are going to be on fire.
So much for diamond hands. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see. So total deliveries 254. So down sequentially, which is fine. Global vehicle inventory days still at 4. So it's still quite low. 4 days of supply.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. Big jump in storage deployed over Q1. So that's it's quite a bit quarter over quarter sequential, down year over year, but quarter over quarter, that's what, 25-30%? If I can do math right.
That's a lot of megapacks.
Yeah.
Wait, does that mean they deliver their cars within 4 days on average?
No. That's the amount of supply they have left over.
Yeah. So like if you were to take all of Tesla's cars in inventory right now, and say, and you're like, okay, don't add any more new cars, it would take 4 days to clear that inventory.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they have 100,000 cars in inventory, which is not, but let's just use that as a number, and they say they're selling, it basically means they're selling 25,000 cars a day. So it takes 4 days to clear 100,000 cars.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
just for context, for most automakers, good for that looks like 30 days, maybe 20 days, and that's like extremely good. Normally it's like 45, 60 days, and Tesla is always a couple days, less than a week.
But
Do you know what is the average right now in the current economy?
look it
Did
up.
any other automaker report earnings yet, or no? Do we know?
you look at.
Well,
you
we
look at
can
last
check
quarter.
the last quarters. But I
Yeah.
remember a time when like 70 days was like pretty standard for Ford, for GM. Like
So
no one used to bat an eyelid. So
yeah. So from the time that the car gets made to the car till the time that the customer accepts delivery, does that count as Tesla's inventory during that time? That car?
Yeah, whatever hasn't
Mhm.
been officially handed over to the
Okay.
buyer. Yeah, it's still
That means
technically
That
inventory.
means they're delivering fast. Wow.
Yeah, that means that whatever, like they barely have anything on hand.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as
Well-
basically something gets made, it gets sold.
And remember, this is a snapshot. So probably days of inventory throughout the quarter is much, much higher than 4. But then on the last day of the quarter, they are trying to get as many cars out the door as possible. And so if you're looking at the delivery wave, they may be building up quite a bit of inventory throughout the quarter and then
Oh.
trying to get all those out. So that's why Elon talks about the delivery wave being so intense.
So you're saying that 4 days is like a snapshot of the end of the quarter. It's not
Yeah.
like their average throughout the quarter. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that
that's
is
correct.
what that number was on June 30th or 31st, whatever. June.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, and of
So
course,
we went
30th.
we went all the way up to 777, and now we're at 763, but we're still up almost 3% for the day, just to kind of recoup that. So I did some quick math here. So I took all their install current capacity and all the factories that they're saying as of end of Q2. This adds up to 1.9 million cars. So they have built-in capacity already of at least 1.9 million, which bodes well for next year. Because that already says
next quarter
if-
even.
next quarter, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And they did
Oh.
250,000 this quarter, which is like a run rate of if we just extend this one quarter 4 times, it'd be 1
double.
million. So it's like double. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
theoretically, Q3 they could do 500,000. Theoretically,
Wow.
which
It
would be
looked
kind of bananas.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like they bumped up Shanghai. Wasn't it 500,000 last quarter?
It was.
I could be
believe
wrong.
so.
I'm just
It
guessing.
was greater than 500 last quarter,
Great. Yeah.
greater than 600.
I have the winners, by the
Oh,
way,
Yeah.
when you want to look at those
Yeah.
for the
So
poll.
that's a big change. That says a lot about what they think is happening.
Okay. Yeah, let's do the winners after we quickly scan this page. This
So quick question on that Shanghai number. Do you think that is also as of June 30th? Because the upgrade happened afterwards, or are they telling us, hey, we just finished the upgrade and now as of July 20th, we think that Shanghai capacity is 750 or
So
greater?
let's read this snippet. While the Shanghai factory was shut down fully and then partially for the majority of Q2, we ended the quarter with a record monthly production level. Recent equipment upgrades will enable us to continue to increase our production rate further. So I'm assuming it's inclusive of the changes they made after Q2 based on that.
Okay.
Can I touch on that? I actually don't think it does. We've seen them do essentially 70,000 a month. If you extrapolate 70,000 by 12, that's what, 840,000. So I would insinuate it 750 is not inclusive of the changes, but it says greater, right? So, but that's just me speculating,
Yeah, it's hard. to
or being
say.
an ultra bull.
Well, and I know I've heard numbers from other people saying that after the upgrades, the rated capacity at Shanghai will be greater than 1 million cars a year. So
And also, this is installed capacity, right? So if they're able to do 70,000, probably their installed capacity is a little bit more.
Right. Another interesting pointer here. So Tesla's market share continues to increase. So quarter over quarter, they went from, call it 2.5% in US, Canada to over 3% in Europe. It's essentially flat. And then China, it also went up quarter over quarter a bit, slightly. The US market share is kind of going parabolic here a little bit, or exponential rather.
And
Which is
just to
interesting.
clarify, that is market share of the entire auto market, not necessarily EV share, which is what
Right.
Gary talks about a lot.
That's correct.
Oh,
Which is really the important metric. It's the important metric.
Yeah. Good
Real
point.
quick, I want to read this snippet here. Install capacity equals current production rate, and there may be limitations discovered as production rates approach capacity. Production rates depend on a variety of factors, including equipment uptime. Okay, blah blah blah. Never mind. Not as exciting as I thought. Okay. FSD. Cumulative miles driven with FSD beta, it's going exponential. So as of and this is a monthly
Oh.
chart.
I've never seen this
Whoa.
before.
I believe this is a new chart. So
Yeah.
November 2021, there were about 5 million miles. Then December was 7.5, and then it increased to about 10, then 15, then 18, then 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So it does look like we're starting to really ramp up how many miles are driven on FSD beta. And then here's a chart about the robot count per unit of manufacturing capacity. Whoa. Okay, this is a super cool. This is actually super interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So Model 3 Fremont, Model Y Fremont, Model Y Austin. Okay. So I wish we had a count here. So what's the scale? So I mean, we can say about half, right? Here, and then Model Y Fremont's half of Model 3 Fremont, and then Austin Model Y is about what? Almost half of the Model Y Fremont machinery, and Berlin and Austin, I guess, are the same. Interesting.
So that's
So
the
That's
number
like
of
we know-
robots per
we know-
car. Okay.
per assembly line, essentially.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you,
Yeah.
well, we
per
already
car.
know that. Yeah. So we know that the Model 3 Fremont originally needed anywhere between 800 to 1,000 robots, because it was what the casting reduced the body shop by 300 robots, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was just the rear. So the front is another 300. And then the rest of, painting and everything, if we sort of just put it up, it's anywhere between 800 to 1,000 for Model 3 Fremont. So we're talking about 2,000 for Model S Fremont. Model Y Fremont had the casting, so maybe from 800 to 1,000 to 400 to 500. So that tracks that, 300 robots removed. And then Model Y, Austin and Berlin with the structural pack, another bunch of robots removed. So yeah, I think it tracks.
Yeah, the robot count in our body shops and new factories dropped by over 70% per unit of capacity compared to our first iteration of Model 3 body shop. So that right there, it kind of lines up with exactly what you just said. Our quest for simplification is not over. We will continue to drive simplification further with every new product and every new factory.
Dang. Nice.
Interesting. Okay.
What are you
But
guys'
you can
Okay, hold
see.
Hot take. They're tracking to one robot building a car, the Tesla bot. One bot to do it all.
It looks like it's kind of reaching an asymptote here, so I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another hot take about that in a bit.
What were
We're
you
going to
going to
have
say,
negative
Nick?
robots.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what are your thoughts on the fact that the FSD beta users says 100,000? I was personally kind of hoping it would say 200,000.
Over 100,000.
It's the end of Q2 22. And they started, I think, doing a wider release in Q3, I think, 2 weeks back or so, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's possible that, say, with 10.13 going live here in a couple weeks, I think that number is probably going to go over 200,000.
How many miles for the last month, just from May to June? What do you think the jump there was?
So we got, what is that, 27 and then 35.
So 8 million. 8 million
So
divided by 100,000.
30% increase in miles driven. We have a quick comment. BTC tanking coincidence? I don't think so. I think it's them dumping 75% of their Bitcoin. Yeah. Crypto's having a very bad year. Okay. Interesting.
That number, if we divide the 800 or the 8 million additional miles driven for that 1 month by the 100,000 cars, it'd be 80 miles per car per month. So that means a lot of people aren't using it a lot. Like I use it all the time.
Okay.
I probably put 1,000 miles a month or something, but some people barely use it probably. Sounds like.
That's an interesting data point.
Yeah.
But also they expanded to 100,000 pretty late into Q2, right? So it was probably closer to 40,000.
I think 80 miles a month makes sense though, because honestly, like where I live, it's a lot of highway driving, and FSD beta doesn't work in the highway.
Yes,
wouldn't
that's
count.
true.
Makes sense. Yeah.
That's also true.
Yeah, because city driving is going to be a lot less miles per minute spent in the car than highway driving, because you're just going way slower.
That's a good point.
And that's
so
where
that
FSD
actually
beta
has
works.
very large implications for that graph once they go to single stack. Once they start counting highway miles as FSD beta miles, then that is literally going to go straight up, like parabolic vertical.
Yeah.
X squared.
Great call. All right. Real quick, let's do the winner, Mike. Can you share your screen? And then we'll keep going on the deck.
Okay.
Let's see. All right. Let's see who won our special prize. We'll keep going on the deck as well here. I'll bring it up so far. I'll bring it up as well. It's just so we can have it on the side here. And then
okay. Is it working?
The Outlook. Are you able to share? Oh,
yeah,
Mike. Okay. I got to push you. All right, here we go.
There we go. Okay, so the winner for net income ended up being 2.3 billion. The winner was Steve. I just put some guesses in. Johnson.
All right, Steve. Are you on the stream, my friend?
Good job. Yeah, off by 58 only. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Satoshi's dad probably wasn't happy with this report.
Yeah, darn. Yeah, and then the winner for gross margin was Satoshi's dad, off by 1. Guess 24. It was 25.
Nice.
Third place. Oh, it's all there. And then the EPS winner is Farzad. Good job. Off by 0.03, just 3 cents.
It's rigged.
In your face, Hans.
Farzad, you win our love and appreciation.
And then the winner for revenue is Kevin Hagen Investing, off by 35 only. Wow, that's impressive.
Wow, that's damn close.
Look at everyone else, off by like 500, off by 2,000. Yeah.
Dang. We got a Tesla Insider in Hagen.
Yeah. Oh, and then let's look at the charts. So this is what the net income looked like. Most people in this between 1,900 and basically 1.9 billion and 2.6 billion, about 3 people there, and then some people on the sides. Gross margin, kind of around 29%. People were guessing. Earnings per share gap. Most people guess within the correct range, but there are some high ones around $4 or $3.70. Yeah. Revenue. What was the actual revenue again?
16.
Okay.
16.9, right?
So
Something like
the actual revenue is in this
Pretty much medium.
the right side here of it. Huh. Cool.
that. Nice.
It'll be
Thank you,
cool when we
Mike.
have more data because it'll be like more like a bell. Hopefully, I'm like a bell.
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
bell chart.
Oh,
It's
my God.
interesting that with so few data points, it still is already bell shaped.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is.
All right, who's going to be
Hey,
the mod that's going to get rid of the naked, tired of being alone people in the comment section? Help.
Hey, guys, real quick, just media spin here. CNBC headline: Tesla grows revenue 42%, but automotive margins decline. And if you read it, they don't mention Shanghai once, and they literally say this was impacted by inflation and more competition for battery cells and other components that go into electric vehicles. No mention of Shanghai shutdowns or anything. They talk about Russia and selling Bitcoin, but
What a
nothing
crock.
else.
Oh, come on. They had this article pre-written.
Yeah, oh, 100%. Yeah, I think Yashu was saying it yesterday on a little stream, or today, I forget. But yeah, 100%. All these were written ahead. But this is just BS. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Not surprised, but disappointed. What's one of the sayings that we've been saying here lately.
Yeah.
Let's read through the outlook here. So volume, we plan to grow our manufacturing capacity as quickly as possible. Over a multi-year horizon, we expect to achieve 50% annual average growth in vehicle delivery. So they restated this goal. Okay. So for those that are, I think Gary Black has been sort of critical about Tesla not being clear about how they're going to achieve 50% year over year, but they keep reiterating it every quarter. So multi-year horizon, how do you guys interpret that? 3 years, 5 years, 2 years? I mean, that's for me, it's at least 3 years, right? Multi-year horizon.
Yeah.
So that gets us to 2025.
Elon thinks it's 9 years.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But by the time, what time is the call?
4:30 Central.
5.
Okay.
And
5:30,
just so that people understand on that average, that does leave room to have years that are less than 50%.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's just average. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure next year is going to be anywhere above 65% easy. But,
Yeah.
we'll see the real ramp of Berlin and Texas come in. Yeah.
We have
This
sufficient
is the
liquidity
big
to fund
thing.
our.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No,
No,
go
ahead.
please go for it.
No, I was just gonna say
No,
this
you.
is the big thing I'm worried about on the call. I think for the report, the numbers, all we need to see was above 26% for margins. I think on the call, if Zach can reiterate 50% for this year, I think that's what the market's looking for. And so the way they phrase this kind of worries me.
Yeah.
Just again, I'm not trying to
But
be
this
a
hasn't
paranoid person,
changed, right? I mean, this statement is pretty much standard across the last few, I don't know, earnings.
but yeah,
They haven't really changed.
I have to go back and compare, but yeah, it's a good point.
Cash, we have sufficient liquidity to fund our product roadmap, long-term capacity expansions plans, and other expenses, so par for the course. Profit, while we continue to execute on innovations to reduce the cost of manufacturing operation, over time, we expect our hardware-related profits to be accompanied with an acceleration of software-related profits, so another reiteration of this. Product, the pace of production ramps in Austin and Berlin, Brandenburg will be influenced by the successful introduction of many new products. Okay,
Nice.
interesting.
Multiple.
And manufacturing technologies in new locations, and ongoing supply chain related challenges. Factory ramp-ups take time, and Gigafactory Austin and Giga Berlin will be no different. We are making progress on the industrialization of Cybertruck, which is currently planned for Austin productions subsequent to the Model Y ramp. So, which is kind of vague, but I think they said somewhere around the middle of 2023, rather. I think it was the last time they.
I checked the last quarter, and it's word for word exactly the same with the multi-year horizon, 50% average. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. What are your initial thoughts overall? Any sort of
Farzad, we should
summarized
do a
thoughts?
poll.
Okay.
We should do a
What's the poll?
poll. Next few products. Will it be the van? Will it be HVAC? What else? Come on, guys. Let's.
The next
What do you
product?
mean? I'm
what are the
confused.
next few products over the next 2 years?
Like
I mean,
after the
products
Cybertruck?
is multiple, right? We
Mhm.
know Cybertruck and we know Semi and we know Roadster, but what else?
Well, yeah, the $25,000 ish compact. I mean, that's one they've already teased more. So I think that comes before the van personally. Although, I know the van has to come. It's an important product. You can't have a complete vehicle lineup without it. But I think the compact before the van personally.
What
Yeah.
about HVAC?
I think they need to get solar figured out first before they come out with HVAC, because I think those two things are tied pretty closely. The way I think about HVAC, because the whole thing is like, well, you got to put in a unit that's going to be able to run super efficiently, but I think they'll package it with solar whenever it does come out. I've been thinking about that a little bit more. I could be wrong, but I think it's packaged with solar in a way that says, hey, put this in your house and go completely off grid, because the thing that's sucking up most of your power is now being run by something super efficient. And here's a power source that will allow you to take advantage of it.
But then again, HVAC is one product that possibly has the least supply chain challenges across everything that Tesla could potentially put their hands in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such low hanging fruit. It's so bad. Like
That's
the
fair.
efficiency of HVAC products is terrible.
Yeah.
And think about commercial HVAC, right? I mean, it's just crazy the impact that can be there.
Yeah. So we give up basically everything, all the gains we had.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about that?
We give up what?
Did anyone sell?
No.
In the comment section, did anyone sell their stock?
No.
I wonder why.
Just to answer a couple of questions that were asked. So as far as future products, I think the next product will be the robo-taxi. And I'll caveat, I adamantly think that depending on how 10.13 goes, if 10.13 solves Chuck Cook's unprotected left-hand turn, then I'm confident the robo-taxi will be next. However, Elon has said that it'll mostly solve it. It's in the release notes. If it doesn't solve it, I think this might put some doubt in people's minds about FSD. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it just needs to be able to actually do it 75% of the time, especially with everyone saying it. But if they do it and it's successful, I think robo-taxis are without a doubt the next thing. It's not a coincidence that Elon all of a sudden dropped it during Cyber Rodeo, and then during the last earnings call, they're thinking about it, they're gaming it, and I think that's next.
So, what do you think the rollout of robo-taxi looks like, assuming that they do solve Chuck Cook's left turn 75% of the time or greater? Like, what is the timeline? What does the rollout actually look like? Do they start in geofenced areas? Do they go head to head with Waymo and Phoenix? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think so. I'll answer this two different ways about rollout. So first of all, I think, and I want to give credit to Yashu, because this was Yashu saying this, not me. I'm just agreeing with him that I think they will start production in 2023 of the robo-taxi. And this is all based on Elon's words. And, Elon says he tries to be very literal. Don't read between the lines. But he said that volume production in 2024. So I think production starts in 2023, volume in 2024. As far as the rollout, I think regulators are going to, I don't think they're going to force them to start in geo areas, mainly because they're not forcing them to beta in geo areas. So why would you force them to go fully out there in geo areas? I could see them giving, it doesn't make sense. Now, Tesla could choose to be cautious and start off with more suburban areas that are for a fleet that they control themselves, and so they know where it's going to go as a pilot program. But I don't think it needs to be geofenced by regulators or anything, but Tesla may choose to do it themselves, again, with robotaxis they own, a fleet they manage, and they say, hey, we'll start off in Jacksonville, where Chuck Cook is. And then, okay, if that's successful, then we'll build out to a somewhat bigger city, maybe like a Raleigh. And if that's good, okay, we build out to an Austin. If that's good, all right, let's go to San Fran. So I could see that being their way about it, but I don't think regulators will mandate that.
I thought there was like certain laws that allowed for driverless vehicles, vehicles with no humans inside. Like, yeah, I've heard like Florida has really, or like there's certain states that have good, like very good laws, set up for that kind of thing. So that might
Florida.
be part of it.
Yeah, Florida has opened up the laws completely for full self-driving autonomous vehicles. And I think you're right. I think there's something like a certain speed that you can currently just have without really too much headaches. I think it's like 50 miles an hour or something that you can go. But don't quote me on that. But you saying that just like brought up a memory that was lodged somewhere back in the crevices of my mind. So I think you're right, though.
But I mean, if it's working in somewhere, it'll be pretty quick. I think that laws will be enacted that will allow for robotaxis. People will be like,
Yeah.
Can we have it here? I want it here. So
I think it'll roll out like Uber did.
Yeah, it makes sense from a development standpoint to sandbox. Like, we're going to start here and just kind of expand, because they're going to, have a limited number of the vehicle to begin with. And so it makes sense to put all those in one place to start with, and then, just expand.
Yeah. But my main point of that is that will be Tesla's decision. I don't think it'll be a regulator decision, unless it's like a state thing, right? Like certain states just say no, just like the dealership thing. But I could see it rolling out like Uber, where, it's kind of hard at a few places because it's very disruptive. But then it turns into a thing where, okay, well, now everybody wants it because no city wants to be the city that's behind the times, so it'll be interesting. But
yeah, especially
anyways.
if they're like a tourist place, they're definitely going to want to have the latest stuff.
I'm
gonna,
gonna follow up with that.
Sorry, I'm
Go
gonna
ahead,
go ahead and post the link for folks that want to jump in and share a thought or ask a question to stop in. But yeah, continue the comment. If you want to stop in and take part of this little group for a few minutes, post the link here shortly and it'll be pinned. But go ahead, Ishan.
Yeah, so my follow-up was, let's say that Tesla is confident enough to actually start rolling out robotaxis. What do you think? Should they spin off like a subsidiary and do it? Because when they start allocating vehicles, at least initially, to this venture, of course, there'll be Tesla owned in the beginning, etc. It'll probably have an impact on the financials. Like, they're building the car, so that's cost of goods sold, but it's not really hitting the revenue numbers. But if they do spin off a subsidiary that can have its own financials and reporting, etc., what we get on this quarterly statement, we still get the revenue number from the subsidiary. We still get like a accurate picture of gross and net margins, and we sort of also get to understand how the robotaxi thing is going on. So what do you think Tesla should do, and what do you think that Tesla will do? These two could be different. I mean.
You're saying spin off in its own entity, like a public company on its own?
Maybe not public, maybe wholly owned subsidiary or something. Separate financials.
But Tesla still owns it as a kind of conglomerate itself.
Something like Grumman or Hybar or something. When they were bought in, they were essentially fully owned subsidiaries, right? So yeah.
I don't think that they would go the public route. I don't think Elon wants to be involved in more public companies, but the wholly owned subsidiary is definitely a possibility. I would love to be able to see the financials separately like that, and I think there are lots of people who would. That's a great question.
Or negative.
We had somebody that joined just a second ago and they left. Maybe they were shy. I honestly, I think that's a very interesting take. What do you think is the biggest value driver by doing that then? Like, what do you think is really the thing that gets solved by doing that? Ishan?
From not a lot from Tesla's perspective, but from all of us, the community, investors, etc., we sort of have a much better understanding of the company as it moves forward, as well as this entirely new line of business that they'll probably have amazing, I would say, gross margins. Net, of course, they will have a high cost, capital expenditures upfront, etc. But I don't see I don't see why Tesla would want to do it. I see why investors would want Tesla to do it, which is why I
Yeah.
asked, what should they do and what will they want to do might be different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if they don't do it, they get a lot more control over the things that they do and do not disclose, and they can shape the narrative however they want to, which I think is the way that they will proceed, versus going the wholly owned subsidiary route, which, like we said, it would be great for us to be able to have that sort of visibility into the numbers. But yeah, I doubt that they would do that. And I doubt that they need to either. I mean, I guess the question is whether or not you trust Elon to disclose what the public needs to know, regardless of whether or not we as investors would like to know more.
There's a very interesting question in the comments here, by Sander. What legacy company do you guys think will be the first to share negative profits?
Stellantis.
Because that's
She
one of those
led.
things where, she led, yeah. Our friend grows General Motors. Real quick, I want to bring in Donald, our first guest. Donald, friend of the show. How you doing, my friend? Welcome.
Hi guys, how you doing?
There we go.
I'm so
Good,
excited. This quarter is going to be great in one way. I think it'll just be bland. That's what I'm hoping for, because then I can buy for the next 3 months. Everyone will start catching on. Then 3 months from now, that's when we're going to see 1,200, 1,500, and so on and so on. But Eshan, is that how I say that?
Yeah.
You're asking for a new product, right? And I can think of 1,000 for Tesla, because Tesla is chum, right? Doing reference for all you guys. But
That's great.
I would say let's explore one other thing here. The Tesla Semi. Yeah, that's a product. I already know that. But the trailer. Do you think if Tesla could make a trailer, they could make it lighter, they could put solar panels on it, they could put motors on the wheels, they could design new tires for it, they could carry 10 cars at once instead of 5 or 7 or something like they can do now. I mean, Tesla got a hold of trailers that you attach to a semi. I think they could just, besides the convoy and the stuff they're doing with the, what do you call that? The Bobcat, the drive unit. You know what I'm saying? They do the trailer too, right?
They've teased this with RV trailers a little bit.
Oh yeah. Those people that left Tesla, a lot of people leave. They're just stars in their own right, and they're making an RV kind of a thing that you tow along. That's what gave me the idea, actually. Thanks for that. But
I think what's interesting about the trailer. So what's interesting about the trailer idea for a semi is that it would 100% be optimized to be as light as humanly possible and to take advantage of the roof, so that it can essentially power the semi as it drives or as it's parked. Now, I think the question becomes, how much energy is a entire roof of a trailer going to actually generate from a power perspective? Because semis require quite a bit of power to run. So is that like 10 miles? Is that 20 miles? What's the cost benefit of that? And then the other thing with sorry, go ahead.
That's a good question, right?
Yeah.
Because Elon thought it was a fool's errand to put it on an actual Tesla, because you don't get like 2 miles in a day or 4 miles in a day.
Right. And then the other one too is with trailers, they get swapped all the time. So one of the advantages of having a trailer, like nowadays, one of the good things about trailers is that you can swap them and you can drop them in yards. So then the question becomes, how willing is Tesla to enter these trailers into a essentially a network of trailers that have to be swapped between carriers. Like
Well,
the
yeah.
trailer wouldn't be. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you'd have to
Yeah.
like almost take over that industry too.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
Tesla dig
Sounds like a
deep
lot of work.
and they dig wide, and
Mhm.
it seems like if they don't innovate that, somebody will. Probably an ex-employee of Tesla, maybe that other company that just started up with the RVs. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
It's an
all
interesting
the
thought.
people in the chat have
So-
seen that, but that's a good extension of the the next iteration, I would think, for that.
So, Donald, what just came to my mind when you were saying this? It was Australian road trains. That's essentially, the semi that's hauling like 10, 15, 20 trailers behind them. And how I see it is that if you've got a small battery pack and a motor on each trailer or even like the container, right? If you've got a self-powered one that can just assist while starting up, and then of course also harness when you're braking. uh, I think it can really increase the number of containers that each or trailers that each semi can haul, and that might be impactful. Different geographies will have different impacts, but like in Australia you've got really long road trips, right?
And
15,
also
20.
lots of solar too. The sun shines there a lot, right?
Yeah.
But also, to Farzad's point, when you park a trailer, it's just sitting there, in the sun, charging up, right? And maybe it doesn't do the wheels. Maybe it's an extra source for the Bobcat
Actual
or
trailer.
whatever.
Bobcat.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it's a cooling car, right? And it provides energy to the
the reefer unit.
reefer unit or a heat pump, without needing a Bobcat connected to it. So there's all kinds of stuff that you could do with that. I don't know. I just Sean
It's a very interesting one.
asked
Yeah.
question, and
The one
of the next
caveat,
100.
that I would put on that is that product only exists in an uncell constrained future. More than likely, that they can always get a higher ROI out of cells put directly into vehicles themselves than they can into trailers. But there's a huge argument to be made. If you can create an I-beam that is a structural battery pack, that you might be able to build a trailer that is close to the same weight as a traditional trailer that has battery storage built into it. And so you could achieve a much longer range on a semi with a trailer than you could, with a structural battery pack in the trailer than you could in just a, traditional trailer. So that's definitely a good thought. But like I said, I think it is gated by, you have to get to the point where you're not constrained by your cell supply first on vehicle manufacturing.
That's actually a very good point, because that's why we don't have a semi or a Cybertruck out there right now, basically, because the cell is the main limiting factor, right? So
that's right.
But
that's right.
By the way, did you guys hear?
Yeah. Thanks, Donald, for coming on, brother.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, man.
You guys have a good one. Bye.
You too, man. Thank you.
So
Sorry,
did you guys hear? Tesla's challenged Panasonic to build it 2 terawatt-hour battery supply chain and manufacturing facility.
When? Just now?
I think it was a couple of days back. Yeah, a couple of days.
Yeah.
But 2 terawatt-hours, I mean.
Yeah.
It's really smart on Tesla's part to, and trying to remember who talked about that. It probably was Jordan, more than likely. In fact, yeah, I remember that it was just Tesla's. The best way that Tesla can diversify their supply chain is to buy as many batteries from as many different suppliers as possible, because every single supplier has their own supply chain. And so the way that Tesla can secure the highest percentage of global raw materials is by working with a maximum number of battery suppliers. That way they can tap into every individual raw material source. And, we've talked about this before, but individual raw materials companies don't want to be overly dependent on smaller number of end customers. And this is kind of one way that Tesla can get around that. If Albemarle says, hey, we only want to sell 10 or 20 or 30%, whatever, of our total lithium supply to Tesla, then, by using Panasonic and CATL and BYD and Samsung as proxies, they can secure a larger amount of that supply.
Yeah. I just pulled in Sander. Sander, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Great.
Awesome.
What you got?
Yeah, I had a question about what are your thoughts about Autobidder and the power packs, the big ones? Because now in Europe we have got these massive issues with the gas supply, the electricity supply. Gas is also supplying a lot of power to electricity at the moment, and decentralized storage grid might really help with that. What are your thoughts on Tesla's role, or maybe just the stock price of Tesla in that sense of helping the grid in the rest of Europe?
Anybody have any thoughts? Who wants to take
My
this one?
first thought, I'll give a couple thoughts. My first thought is we need to turn the nuclear power plants back on.
Yeah.
Nuclear is, I had a sub-discipline in nuclear energy. Nuclear has been so dramatized and scary through a few accidents, which were horrible, but it's definitely over-dramatized. I think the big problem, so you're 100% correct. Tesla could solve this problem. Unfortunately, there aren't enough companies attacking this problem that Tesla's doing with Tesla Energy. But I think, no pun intended, the limiting factor with the power stores, the mega packs and all that, is the fact that Tesla has such a big backlog, right? They've said it themselves, like they're not demand constrained, they're production constrained, which is why they built a new mega pack factory. And so, I don't know. It'd be awesome if other companies could say, hey, let me do kind of a philanthropic effort here. Let me step out of line for my order and let's let this go to Europe. That'd be awesome. You could see a movement like that. But I think Tesla's just constrained at the moment with production. But you're 100% right. Australia's obviously seen the light a long time ago, and I think Europe as a whole, EU, should definitely be leaning towards that way. And hopefully Tesla can be part of that solution, much like they were with Ukraine with Starlink. So that'd be cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a friend of mine, colleague of mine and friend of mine, he was very skeptical about the whole transitioning over to fully green technology. And coming from the Netherlands, we made a calculation according to how much we're using at the time and the expected shift to EVs. Like if every car was an electric car in tomorrow morning, how much electricity we should be used or should we generate? Getting an average windmill and all of the electricity we currently have on green, it would take about 1,600 wind turbines to just get it on a stable current if it just blows the exact same amount of wind all the time. So now, if you scale it back to what the amount of energy we need is and what we're actually generating already, it really scales back the amount that people think is needed. They think that they do need coal, they do need gas, they do need oil all the time. But in reality, if you really look at it, it does really turn back quite substantially. And yeah, I've been working. My previous job was in an energy company, and they were the ones supplying the entire railway system with one wind farm field. And so, what are your thoughts on that part in green energy production, of course, by Tesla or other companies, in the next few years to convert either everything to green and helping with to stabilize the grid, because a lot of locations are now experiencing a lot of heat waves, a lot of peak energy supply. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts are that all the incentives to move towards that have accelerated in the last, say, called 6 to 12 months. So between so the heat wave that we have going on is kind of getting people back into their brains like, hey, like there's high energy costs associated to trying to maintain this thing, and we don't have a grid that can sustain it. Then you got the Russia-Ukraine war that's exposing a ton of weaknesses in parts of Europe when it comes to where they're depending on their fuel sources, and that if they had something localized that was sustainable, they would completely remove the incentive to try to partner with a country that potentially doesn't have your best interest in mind, right? So there's a lot of incentives, and there's a lot of forces that are there that will hopefully force countries to try and move towards this quote unquote green, but in reality, it's just a localized energy infrastructure utilizing batteries and sources that the earth produces to generate that energy. So from that perspective, I'm hoping that now that now that the stick is there, we don't really have a carrot yet. We have a stick that says, stupid, don't buy any more oil from countries that don't have your best interests in mind. There's your stick, right? Then the carrot becomes supply. That's cheap enough for these countries to take hold of these batteries to be able to leverage the sustainable sources, right? So, which again comes all the way back to there isn't enough supply of batteries out there to be prioritized for this use case, because there's more profitable products out there that will utilize these batteries. So at what point does this battery supply reach a point where the market that is currently utilizing those batteries is quote unquote saturated, and you can have excess supply that goes into these renewable sources? That's why the 4680 is so freaking important. Like the 4680 is this like thing that if it does happen, then it becomes the thing, and then you can have auto bidder on top of that, because you need the batteries first to make any of this happen, right? That was kind of long-winded, but I don't know if that kind of helps sort of let you know how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, it really does. Thank you very much for that.
Well, let me expand a little bit on what Nick said too, as well, as far as the composition of the energy sources. That, it's important to have something that's stable for your base energy load, and that's why nuclear is important. Because first of all, it's super cheap, but then second of all, it produces the same amount of power 24/7. So this is an amount of power that you can always depend on, and then so. You're on the demand side, your demand fluctuates throughout the day. And so it is great if you can have at least, a stable amount of production that meets your minimum demand. And then you can start layering in other renewable sources like wind and like solar. The nice thing about solar is it's a lot more predictable than wind. And then the thing to think about when you're talking about wind specifically is that it's not a linear energy source. That the power that you generate with a windmill is a function of the square of velocity. And so if you have wind that's twice as fast as average, you're producing 4 times the amount of average power from that windmill. And so when you're talking about average wind speeds, you just have to think about the fact that you're not looking at a linear graph of power production out of those windmills. And so you can produce a lot of your power in a very short period of time when you have very high winds, which means that you need a larger amount of battery storage in order to capture and save that wind energy for deployment at later times. So yeah, that's why really a good energy infrastructure is nuclear is your base, mostly solar, and then some wind on top of that, because it reduces the amount of overall batteries that you need in order to supply all your peak demand situations.
Super insightful.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hans.
exactly. Hans, if you ever want to see something extremely ironic, go to, I think it's just over the border of the Netherlands from Germany. In Germany itself, it is called Kernwasser Wunderland, and it's a former nuclear power plant converted into a theme park, which ran for about 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
That's
So,
hilarious. That's hilarious.
If I don't know if it's still open or still exists, but I was there when I was a kid, and they served free ice cream and free fries, and they had these giant towers with nice echoes in it. There was a kind of an attraction even, but if they only kept it open till now, they wouldn't have such an issue.
Yep.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you, Sander, for coming on, brother. Really appreciate you. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Have a great evening. Well, day.
Yeah, you too, man.
Bye-bye.
Evening works too. I'm gonna step aside for a few minutes. I need to get a drink and a sandwich, but y'all can continue the conversation. Go for it.
Farzad, can you before you leave,
Yeah.
can you show slide 26, I think, from
Sure.
the deck? Yeah.
Slide 26.
Yeah.
Should we take a poll on what kind of sandwich Farzad's gonna get?
Oh, good idea.
I mean,
Chicken.
we gotta talk about what
Chicken,
matters
chicken.
these days, you know.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. What kind of sandwich?
Oh, I was
What kind of
joking, but okay.
sandwich? No, we're
Let's
doing
do it.
With Farzad, yeah.
So what are the options gonna be? Is it grilled? Is it a
You just gotta get the protein right.
So like roast beef,
Oh.
turkey, chicken.
Yeah.
tuna?
I'm going with peanut butter. Farzad's a PB&J
actually-
guy.
I actually love peanut butter, but I wasn't gonna do that. Here, I'll actually put a
That's
legitimate
sneaky.
poll. Here's a poll. It's one of those four. I'll be right back.
So what's
Okay.
on
I
this?
got
Yeah,
the
so-
slide up for you, Ishan, by the way. So if you want to
Yeah,
jot the conversation.
yeah. So I was just looking at this one, and if you just below net cash used in financing activities, you see the effect of exchange rate changes on cash and cash equivalents, right? And that jumped from 42 plus minus 38.80 all the way to a net loss of 214 million, if I'm not mistaken. And this tracks with that jump in exchange rates that we had, where the dollar became about 10% more expensive compared to both the yuan, as well as over a period of time, of course, the euro, right? However, that 10% change does not somehow explain such a large jump, is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? I mean, $214 million in exchange, FX losses. That's a pretty big number, isn't it?
Oh, the fourth line from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Effect of exchange rate changes on Oh, they did mention that, didn't they? They mentioned the foreign exchange thing.
Mm-hmm.
So is that because the foreign exchange markets are always fluctuating, and so as money's being kind of sent to Tesla from other currencies, before they turn it into USD, they take a loss?
Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
selling cars in foreign currencies in all these global markets. So in China, they're selling them in the yuan, and in Germany, they're selling them local currencies, euros. And so if those other currencies depreciate relative to the dollar, then those sales that they made in local currencies are not worth as much in dollars anymore.
So what do you guys think? I mean, it's a pretty big jump, right?
Yeah. What percent of their total revenue is that? If their total revenue is 20 billion or something? I don't remember.
Yeah, 1%.
So it's like 1%. I guess that's
A little more.
not too crazy, I guess. It's kind of like they get paid in foreign
Mhm.
currency. Let's say half the money comes from foreign currencies or something, and they take like an average a 2% loss because like they're going down, I guess.
Mhm.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to the stability of the global exchange market up until this quarter. That you can see it's kind of bouncing around positive 42, negative 42, 38, negative 18. It's kind of, just bouncing around there. And then now we're seeing just a devaluing of
Other
currency.
currencies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a number that popped out, and there's actually another thing that I saw, which is on the next slide. Unfortunately for us, it's not around. Actually, look for it, or not the next one.
I haven't
Okay.
read through the whole thing. It's long.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, I was just going through the numbers and a couple of things. So, shares used in EPS calculation, diluted GAAP and non-GAAP,
Which page is
right?
that?
It's 27. But I can read this information out to you. So the number of shares used is 1,119 million. So that's 1.119 billion in Q2 21, going all the way up to 1.157 in the last quarter. This quarter, it's actually reduced by a small number to 1.155 billion, which is like 2,000 shares, no, 2 million shares lower. So
2
the
million lower.
question, yeah. So what explains, what scenarios explain something like this? Tesla hasn't done a buyback, of course. It hasn't reduced the shelf, of course. So any of you guys want to comment on what actually explains a scenario like this?
Yeah, how do you decrease shares? Which line is that on page 27? Farzad, can you switch to page 27?
Second, the next,
Second.
yeah, the next one. So second block, last line.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, yeah.
So was the question how do shares go down sequentially?
Yeah,
Quarter over
yeah,
quarter.
yeah.
Which line was this on again? The second to last one?
Right in the
Second
middle.
block, last line. Second block, last line.
Yeah.
Oh, right here. So are there shares that are part of compensation that is guaranteed for employees? Like say, so for example, when I joined Tesla, they were like, part of my thing was I get X number of shares over 4 years. But then if I leave on year 2, the shares that were promised to be given over 4 years, if I leave on year 2, will those 2 years not count anymore? And those get backed out of the
So it's
equation.
put back into shelf. Okay.
It's almost
Which
like an escrow,
means-
right? But if it's an escrow, it has to be counted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially what he's saying is if he has an RSU package of, say, 100 shares that vest over 4 years, but he leaves on year 2, he might leave 75% of those shares there, which get put back into the
Exactly.
pie, into
Yeah.
the pot.
I don't know if that's true or
That-
not,
I mean-
if that's that describes it. But
And this is
Good-
what,
good
2
point,
million shares, which is quite a large number in absolute terms.
Someone said.
yeah, but they had
I
layoffs.
think,
Yep.
but they were right. They were not last Q, right? They were this Q. So,
Yeah,
have you
stock
heard
market.
of? Have you heard of any senior executives other than Karpathy leaving?
I mean, if it's most of them, we probably won't even hear about, right? Because there's a lot of
Yeah.
executives we don't know.
I mean, I have friends that work at the company, and I know, like people across every place have left the company, across every level. It's just the ones that get the media attention are the ones that show up. But it's just natural cycle of business, you know.
And then it would also mean that shares allocated to new employees is actually lesser than the number of shares left on the table by employees leaving.
If
Yes.
yeah, it would. Yeah. If they're not hiring nearly as many people, which within a quarter that has so when did the layoffs go effective? I mean, some people were leaving towards the end of Q2,
Week and a half
if I remember
before,
correctly.
right?
Yeah. Somebody's asking for the poll results. So Turkey won, and it's a turkey sandwich. Good job, everybody.
Turkey.
Turkey.
The chat is so smart.
It's
Yep.
it's a
Wisdom of
How'd
crowds.
you guys know?
Hans. Why'd you say it like that? Turkey.
Oh, that was
That
me.
wasn't
Sorry.
me. That was Nick.
Oh, that
was
was
me.
Nick. You're a
Alright.
hater. You're a turkey hater, bro.
No, I'm not a turkey hater, but when you said you were getting a sandwich, I was like, man, I could go for a steak sandwich. That was what was going through my mind. Yeah.
Well, I'm grilling for dinner, so I'm like eating like a little snack before
What are you,
we
what
have
are you
some
grilling?
chicken and other boring meat. Yeah.
No,
So,
chicken
here's a
is
question
very
for everybody.
interesting.
So
Yeah, go for it.
we have earnings calls going to start here in about 29 or about 19 minutes. What do you guys want to hear? What's like the thing that you want to hear that you think will have an impact either on the stock if you care about that, or just in general? What are you looking to hear that would tell you that this was a good earnings call, or what don't you want to hear? Whichever way you want to look at that.
I kind of want to hear like what percent of people, what percent of the FSD beta testers are using the FSD beta like all the time, and what percent are not? Because I'm hearing myself.
Let me see if I can hear
Presence and
myself.
echo.
Oh, yep, I'm hearing myself. Whoa.
Is that better? Okay, it's better. Anyway, it's because it's only like 80 miles per driver on average, so it seems like it should be more, or it could be more, you know, if everyone is using it a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear them say 4680 ramp is sucking.
But we know it is, so
Yeah.
I think for my end, I think the reiteration of the volume being at 50% year over year this year would be like, I think Nick, you're the one who said this, right? Initially at the call, like that is, I think that's going to be important for folks that are invested in the company for the next couple quarters. But it's becoming really obvious that going into next year, especially with the installed capacity they listed in the quarterly earnings, it might be very easy for them to deflect and say, you know, well, we're not really, we think we're going to get close to 50% year over year, but next year is going to be well above 50%. So I think they're going to deflect that point, even if they get pressed hard on it. I think for me, the reiteration of level 4 being achieved this year would be nice to hear, because that's been a big thing that Elon has been pushing for the last few quarters. Is like level 4 full self-driving this year. Level 4.
Has he said that, or has he just said level 4, or not level 4? FSD beta is safer than a human.
Or did you say out of beta? I think you said out of beta for this year.
it's
I
not
think-
going
I
to
think
be
he
out
said-
of beta, I think.
I think he said confident that level 4 will be achieved this year. He said, I would be shocked if it's not achieved this year. That's correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was his exact verbiage.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
exact context of that, it's funny to hear how many people like take things out of context, or they say certain things. So I always like to be precise about it. Elon Musk said that
you're
in
an engineer.
January when he was on the Lex Friedman podcast. Lex Friedman asked him about it, and that's when Elon said, level 4. And so now Elon has continued to reiterate that, but he hasn't specifically said level 4 over and over. I know Elon doesn't like the level way. He thinks that's kind of a idiotic way to think about it. But he has talked about wide release by the end of the year, that he thinks they'll, solve autonomous vehicle driving better than a human, is what he keeps saying over and over, by the end of the year. So better than a human is his measuring stick, and that's what he keeps iterating by the end of the year. So just try to keep things equal and accurate on that front. But I agree with
which
what
is
saying.
somewhat of an ambiguous metric, especially when you can define, okay, in what domains are we better than a human? Like, is it just city streets? Is it this? Is it that? And so, yeah, I think that's important for people to remember.
Or even the kind of maneuvers, right? I mean, you can say that, okay, unprotected left turns, we're not as good as a human yet, but we're good with X and Y and Z kind of maneuvers or situations or whatever. But
Yeah, and there's a lot of wiggle room, because like it could be better than a human at avoiding crashes, but it could also phantom brake a lot, do a lot of annoying things, and just be uncomfortable. You'd rather have a human driver, maybe because of comfort.
Well, yeah, and I did a video recently with FSD Beta, and I was saying while I was recording that the question is, are we trying to get to better than a human, or are we trying to get to as finesse as a human? Those are two different things. So yeah, you're right. We can phantom brake, and maybe that's annoying, but if I'm trying to use this as an Uber, what do I really care? It's annoying, sure, but I'm just trying to get from point A to point B at a very low cost. And so I think they need to solve the problem, and then we can work on finesse. And so you try to get finesse as you go along, but to me, okay, we phantom brake. Oh no, you're being overly cautious, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, or sometimes the phantom brake's too late almost, but I think there's a wiggle room there. Like, it's just because it makes those type of errors doesn't mean it's not safe or better than a human. Like, there's nuance there that I didn't really realize until I started using FSD Beta.
Yeah, and I think safety is 100% supposed to be the top priority. It's supposed to be the thing they figure out this year, and the next year is about finesse. So
agreed.
They're doing the good thing.
Yeah.
So I'll probably add just my last thing. What I want to see or don't want to see in the call is Elon Musk. I don't want to see him, although people, especially the media, is going to take it the wrong way. But if he doesn't join the call, I think that's just showing or giving a statement of confidence that, hey, everything's okay, I don't need to join this. Right. For me, I think that's it might be a bit controversial if he doesn't join, but
I like that though. I like it.
I can tell you what the
Zach
headline
did
is
such
tomorrow.
a good job.
Oh yeah,
dude. Last time Zach was on was so good. He was so good. I was so impressed.
But headline: if Elon doesn't show up, Elon distracted by Twitter misses earnings call.
Exactly. Like I said, the media is going to take it all wrong, but I think for me, it's such a powerful statement in confidence, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But going back to what Farzad said, and I'm happy you pulled these up, Farzad. We should definitely go through these. But what you said as far as I think you said this, the reiteration about FSD by the end of this year. Look, Elon said it in January with Lex Friedman. Then he said it on the Q1 earnings call. Now we're going to be on Q2 earnings call. If he can still say that with confidence, I think that speaks volumes, right? The year's closing down. We're getting a shorter time frame. And obviously he can see more than we can. He's on the alpha version, so he sees way more than we can. So to hear, that's the one reason I want him on, is because he's our kind of measuring stick. Well, you said this. Are you changing your time window, or are you still confident on that? Because that kind of gives us some signals as well.
Especially in the wake of Andre leaving, people are going to really want to know, hey, are you going to reiterate this timeline now that Andre just left?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the top questions in the that they're going to be asked. In the
Why are we
Q&A.
looking at institutional questions instead of the good questions?
Also,
how do you feel progress of FSD? There you go. Yeah, that's the top retail question.
Yeah.
Sire, huh?
Let me filter it to retail here.
I will say the institution actually did have a couple decent questions, like just to give them some credit. Like the question about unified vector space, that's a great question. Like I would love to know when that is. Is it version 11? Is it not version 11? You know, like do they have an estimated time for that? I thought it was pretty decent, especially for, you know, institution.
Yeah.
I can't imagine who would have asked this question.
Pierre Farragut, 100%.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I love this question. Unified vector space, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't think it was Gary?
it's almost
Or
like an oxymoron, you know.
you don't think it was Gordon?
Maybe Arc, you know.
So right now they have a
that could
vector.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be.
Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but right now they have a vector space for the static objects like lane lines, stop signs, stuff like that. But like cars and people is still the old way of what do you call it? The grid, the point
The bag
grid,
of points.
The bag of points. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's a cool slide at number 19, page 19. It shows how much the pretensioner with vision system helps as far as
that
like
was
Yeah.
beautiful. It's amazing.
So the vehicle, how do I read this graph?
so like the sharper that turn in the curve is, like that dotted green line on the far right, that's just normal seatbelt, and it's just like this. The sharper that turn of the curve is the more jolt you're gonna feel
Yeah,
when you get hit by the belt. So the solid red line is with the vision system. It's a lot smoother, a smoother deceleration, and a sooner deceleration as well. You're more connected to the car. So the closer it is to that far left line, the dotted, that far left one.
Got it.
That's like,
so then this is what, like
connected to the
30
car.
milliseconds right here?
Yeah,
Like
you're
30
like
millisecond.
Mhm.
Okay.
You're slightly delayed.
Got it.
You're stopping right after the car stops, but it's a lot better than way after the car stops and harsher.
That's a great way to
It's-
explain it too. You're connected to the car, so that's a beautiful analogy because it's a solid mass, right? It's like, you know, when you're in a vehicle, in a plane, like you travel at the same, right? Because you're essentially one mass. But whenever you're separated, or like if you try to jump onto a moving treadmill or something, like you're not going at that. So yeah, I like good analogies. That was a great way to explain it.
I wonder, like, what's so fascinating about this? Like, what other automaker gets this nerdy about technology in their shareholder deck? Like, this is so nerdy.
Yeah, it is.
A few decades back, Volvo would, I think.
That's true. That's true.
You remember
there
the last deck where they had this visual of, where they done like, where do all the accidents happen? And how it
Yes.
differs from, super awesome, super crazy.
Yeah, I forget which deck that was from. Was that from the last quarterly earnings? Was it from the previous
Earnings
ones?
or impact? One of the two.
Oh, okay.
I think it was the last one we had. You just had it up. I think we almost had the picture, but I think we should go through those questions. Yeah, I think
Okay.
slow down. Oh no, you just sorry. The lag.
I'm going so fast. Sorry.
Yeah,
Let's look at the questions. We're at 7 minutes
I'll
away.
be back.
Yeah.
This lag, this is the jitter that you see with the FSD, except a lot smaller time frames. Like, but this is what happens. This is what vector
We
space will
should
help
have,
with.
I know, Tesla Vision for our live stream here. Yeah, this is a super interesting question. I mean, I really hope Elon. Like, do you guys think if Elon isn't on that this? Well, now let me re-ask this. Do you think Elon does come on because this is the top retail question asked by Sawyer actually? Like, do you think this is actually the incentive for Elon to come on and answer this question? Like, announce a new head of AI person.
How are we seeing? Isn't this supposed to be anonymous?
I think it's anonymous
No.
until they close voting and then they make it.
Oh, good point. Sorry, I'm an idiot. Sorry,
No.
good point.
You're popping back in, but I think he's gonna do this on AI Day.
Yeah, do it on
Okay.
AI Day. Nice.
That makes sense.
I think he's going to be on, but not because of that question. I think he's going to be on because he's going to say it's the most challenging quarter they've ever had. So I think he's going to talk about that. And I think he's also going to be there to talk about how good much progress it did. Fremont and Nevada, what 2 million vehicle. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to go on there. I don't think he'll go on for shareholders. I don't think he'll go on there for investors or Wall Street. I think he'll go on to give shout out to the people. All right, congratulate the people from his own words. I think he'll be on there to say, yes, Andre, he did a lot of good work. He helped us a lot. We hope the best for him, but he wasn't the whole team. There's so many people. I think it's going to be about him being on there to say, like, look, we had a tough time. Shout out to these people. Great job over here, 2 million. Great job to everybody who's working on FSD beta. It's more than just one person. It's a team. It's not just me. It's not just Andre. It's everyone. And I think that's why he's going to be on there.
Well, and there's something to be said for having the actual CEO on too, just in the macro environment being what it is, just to try and give, I know Elon's the exception to this rule, but try and give investors some confidence that, hey, like the CEO is paying attention and involved.
Understatement of the year. Every investor is right now saying, please don't go on. Please don't go on. I'm over here as a engineering geek saying, please be on. Please, I don't care what you say. Say so.
I do like it when he's on. I just remember him saying, I don't, maybe just once a year or something.
And this is why, because I'm an engineer as well, this is why I love following Gary Black, is because at least he can give me insight into what those stupid people on Wall Street are thinking about when they hear Elon.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
He is our window.
He's not even counter. He's just a window.
Yeah.
Into a different part of the investing world. You know. We got a shout out from Emmett, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw it. Hey guys, I'm late just joining, but good job covering this and looking forward to the earnings call. Thank you, Emmett. You're the man.
Thanks, Emmett. And good job
You're
for
awesome.
watching.
Dude, that was such a fun conversation with Emmett the other day. That was awesome.
Oh, it was great. He's such a good sport. He's such a good sport. And he's so
not to come off like a fanboy. Not to come off like a fanboy, but I think I've been watching interviews of Emmett like for a long time. And for a long time I was like, man, this guy's legit. I've literally fanboyed over Emmett for a while. Not to freak him out or anything right now, but yeah, I think we've all kind of been there with some of these people. But Emmett was, like, man, this guy's ridiculous. How do you do all this? And like, I think I take risk. Man, Emmett's like, the risk he takes. It's like, and then you hear him talk about, it's like that wasn't even a risk the way you explained it. Oh, so calculated. Like it's, I love him.
It seems like Step Brothers level risk.
Yeah. No, I love their stuff. I watched them yesterday on the live stream. Like excellent stuff.
Yeah, it always, when Farzad brings in, Emmett Peppers, Alexandra, Tom Nash, it's like, I think I'm going to pee my pants a little bit here before we get on the stream.
Yeah.
A little bit of fear never hurt anybody.
Yeah, it never hurts. Helps you behave.
That's right.
Yep.
All right. I got the stream up on my end, but I'm not going to share the screen until it's live because we were having some echo issues because Elon is in? Elon's in the call? Did he say yes?
Yeah. All right.
Wow, nice. Did he tweet or something?
I'm looking it up.
Okay, so before we start, sorry, go ahead first.
No, I was going to say his last tweet is haha true.
True.
But not to anything relating to the thing.
Okay, so what all do you guys have to drink for the call?
I have a sparkling lemonade hard seltzer thing because I was going to get beer today, but our car got a flat when my wife was driving it, so it's her fault that I can't have beer.
Yeah, okay. That's all right. They're good, Farzad. They're delicious.
I'm going to go get a soda.
They're so good.
I'll be right back.
I'll be right back. I got to get something, and I got to...
Here's what I have.
Oh.
We're about to...
That's hardcore.
Oh, my.
This
was that vodka?
No, this is called Indri. It's an award-winning Indian single malt. Just launched, I think it won some awards at the Jim Murray Whiskey Awards. So yeah. Cheers, everybody. Call sound.
Cheers, man. Sláinte. For my Irish friends, Sláinte. Probably shouldn't have this unmuted while I... All right. We should go live here any second.
I never had this one before, but it looked interesting, so I bought it.
Cream soda?
It's rock and rye. I don't know what that means. Has rye.
Nice.
Have you guys ever come across Clouden?
Clouden?
Clouden, yeah. It's non-alcoholic, but it's got something that swirls like a cloud in the bottle.
No, I've never had it.
Post.
There was a I think we're going live.
Oh.
All right. Okay.
We'll mute.
Yeah, if you can mute, that would be great.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tesla's second quarter 2022 Q&A webcast. My name is Martin Vieca, VP of Investor Relations, and I'm joined today by Elon Musk, Zachary Kirkhorn, and a number of other executives. Our Q2 results were announced at about 3 p.m. Central Time in the update deck we published at the same link as this webcast. During this call, we will discuss our business outlook and make forward-looking statements. These comments are based on our predictions and expectations as of today. Actual events or results could differ materially due to a number of risks and uncertainties, including those mentioned in our most recent filings with the SEC. During the question and answer portion of today's call, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. Please use the raise hand button to join the question queue. But before we jump into Q&A, Elon has some opening remarks. Elon?
Thank you, Martin. So just as a Q2 recap, Q2 was a unique quarter for Tesla due to a prolonged shutdown of our Shanghai factory. But in spite of all these challenges, it was one of the strongest quarters in our history. Most importantly, in June, we achieved production records in both Fremont and Shanghai. And as a result, we have the potential for a record-breaking second half of the year. I do want to emphasize this is obviously subject to force majeure, things outside of our control. The past few years have been quite a few force majeures. And it's been kind of supply chain hell for several years. Credit to our awesome Tesla supply chain team for overcoming insanely difficult challenges. Huge thanks to the Tesla Shanghai factory team who sacrificed a lot to get the factory back up and running in June and achieve a record output. So also making good progress with production ramp with Berlin. We achieved an important milestone of 1,000 cars a week in June, and we're expecting our Giga Texas to exceed the 1,000 vehicle per week milestone hopefully in the next few months. To be clear, we're currently making the cars with the 2170 cells, and Drew Becklino will address some of the 4680 questions later in this call. But it is worth emphasizing that we have enough 2170 cells to satisfy all vehicle production for the remainder of the year. So we're not dependent on 4680. 4680 will be important next year, but it is not important this year. That said, we have installed the second generation of manufacturing equipment for 4680 cells in Texas. And even at our established factories like Fremont and Shanghai, we continue to expand capacity. Regarding Autopilot, we have now deployed FSD Beta with City Streets driving capability to over 100,000 owners. They're very happy with the capabilities of the system and will continue to improve it every week. We've now driven over 35 million miles with FSD Beta. That's more autonomous miles than any company we're aware of. I think probably it might be more than all other companies combined. And that mileage is growing exponentially. With regard to manufacturing and technology, about 5 or 6 years ago, we said we wanted to become the best manufacturer in the world, and that is somewhat counterintuitively to some people what will actually be, I think, our strongest competitive advantage. We're super pro manufacturing here at Tesla, and in general, we want to encourage other companies to be super pro manufacturing, and in general, I think it is a very important thing to do. We need to make stuff and make it efficiently, and that's manufacturing. So we've made a lot of advancements in manufacturing processes, as we now show in the shareholder deck. Thanks to our the large castings, we make the world's largest castings. We reduced body welding robot count by 70% per unit of capacity in Austin and Berlin. So that's call it roughly a body shop that is roughly 3 times smaller than would normally be the case. And I should say it's also lighter, cheaper, and has superior noise, vibration, and harshness. So it's good on every level. But this journey is not over. We'll bring another level of simplicity and manufacturing improvements with Cybertruck and future products that we're not quite ready to talk about now, but I think will be very exciting to unveil in the future. Our safety team also introduced a feature that tensions seatbelts if the vision system detects imminent collision, which has never been done before. So you can imagine that if you have a seatbelt that only tensions upon impact, you have very little time to tension the seatbelt. If you've got to be, the car has literally got to be crunching to trigger the seatbelt tensioner. But because we have vision, we can actually see that a collision is about to occur with 100% probability before it actually happens. And so we can tension the seatbelts, and we can even adjust the airbag deployment because we can see, not just feel. This is a fundamental safety advantage that Teslas are now able to offer. And this is also an over-the-air update. So this is something that will be in place in all cars that have at least AP3 hardware. In conclusion, we exited Q2 with a stronger production rate than ever before. Our team continues to focus on Cybertruck production readiness and some future platform design. We are expecting to be still expecting to be in production with the Cybertruck in the middle of next year, and we're very, very excited about that product. I think it might actually be our best product ever. Let's see, and FSD beta is on track to be released for all of North American customers before the end of this year, and hopefully, if we get regulatory approval, we'll also be releasing it hopefully in Europe and some other parts of the world. We're hosting our AI Day in a few months. I think people will be amazed at what we're able to show off in AI Day. So basically, there's a tremendous amount to look forward to in the second half of this year. And I want to thank all of our employees and suppliers for their super hard work during these challenging times. Super appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Zach has some opening remarks as well.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I want to start by congratulating the Tesla team on excellent execution during the second quarter. Although our production volume reduced sequentially due to COVID-related shutdowns in Shanghai, we made substantial progress in nearly every area of the business, and in particular, our global vehicle production rate as we exited the quarter. Our Fremont factory, supported by our Reno team, reached new production records. The Shanghai factory resumed full production, and our new factories in Austin and Berlin are progressing well through their initial ramps. Additionally, our energy business achieved record gross profit with the highest solar volumes in many years. I want to personally thank the entire Tesla team, as I know many of you are listening. You've embodied a remarkable and relentless pursuit of excellence in support of our mission. I also want to thank our suppliers for their support during another complicated quarter. On GAAP automotive gross margin, it declined sequentially to 27.9%. The temporary decline in Shanghai production volume meaningfully impacted margin, including idle capacity and factory restart costs, and also had implications on the mix of regional deliveries. Additionally, as discussed on previous calls, we are working through the ramp inefficiencies of our new factories, which are progressing well, but have had an impact on margin as those factories come online. While we continue to see a benefit from higher pricing flowing through, which experienced some foreign exchange related headwinds, our cost structure continues to experience cost increases from inflation, commodities, and logistics. The energy business progressed well in Q2, aided by alternate solar supply coming online and progress on unit economics. Our storage business remains component constrained on both Powerwall and Megapack, which we hope will alleviate to some extent in the second half of the year. We are greatly appreciative of the patience and flexibility shown by our customers while we work through these challenges. Within operating expenses, Austin and Berlin related startup costs have wound down as these factories have moved into production and their costs are now reflected in automotive COGS. Additionally, we converted a majority of our Bitcoin holdings to fiat for a realized gain, offset by impairment charges on the remainder of our holdings, netting a $106 million cost to the P&L included within restructuring and other. We also incurred restructuring charges related to targeted staffing reductions.
Yeah, actually, it should be mentioned that the reason we sold a bunch of our Bitcoin holdings was that we were uncertain as to when the COVID lockdowns in China would alleviate. So it was important for us to maximize our cash position given the uncertainty of the COVID lockdowns in China. We are certainly open to increasing our Bitcoin holdings in future. So this should not be taken as some verdict on Bitcoin. It's just that we were concerned about overall liquidity for the company given COVID shutdowns in China. And we have not sold any of our Dogecoin.
We still have it.
We still have our Dogecoin.
Despite these challenges, we were still able to achieve one of our strongest operating margins of 14.6%. Our free cash flows were impacted by working capital related to the Shanghai factory shutdown. However, we expect this will show as a benefit in Q3 as our working capital related cash flows restabilize. As we look ahead, and as Elon mentioned, we are positioned for a record-breaking second half of the year. We're quite excited about this. A couple things to keep in mind as we progress. Austin and Berlin ramp inefficiencies will continue to weigh on our margins for the balance of the year. However, the impact should reduce as we increase ramp. Second, as we've mentioned before, we expect to continue to see recognized global pricing to increase as our backlog flows through. However, macroeconomic related cost increases will also continue to be part of our story. And finally, despite losing more builds in Q3 than expected, we're still pushing to reach 50% growth this year. This target has become more difficult, but it remains possible with strong execution. And as Elon mentioned, no more force majeure events for the balance of the year.
A lot of force majeure in the last several years. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now let's go to the questions from investors. And the first question is, Chinese EV manufacturers seem to be doing a better job than their Western competitors, excluding Tesla, at innovating in software and design. How can Tesla make sure the company is staying ahead of those manufacturers, both within China and outside of China?
Well, right now the best Chinese EV manufacturer is Tesla China. We're actually doing the best thanks to our incredible team in China. But I have a lot of respect for the Chinese car manufacturers and EV manufacturers in particular. I think they will be a force to be reckoned with worldwide. They're smart and they're hardworking, and I think anyone who is not, any company that's not as competitive as them will obviously suffer a market share decline. So I would say we have a lot of respect for the car companies in China and then their capabilities. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is, when will Tesla have a unified vector space for both static and moving object network? Will this be a V11 or later version? If the latter, can you explain what makes it a difficult problem in layman terms?
Okay. This answer will be understood by 0.001% of the audience, I think most people don't know what a unified vector space would actually mean. It essentially would be if you can take if instead of knitting together static and dynamic objects in C++, if they can be knit together at the neural net level, then you don't need to reconcile them within C++ heuristics. That is an architecturally better way to that's the most desirable outcome. I think it's probably not necessary to achieve full self-driving, but it would be a slight improvement in the efficiency of the self-driving, and it's certainly something we want to get to. The sort of nirvana situation is you have surround video auto labeling of all static and dynamic objects, and you have then surround video inference with spatial memory as well. And that's, I mean, I think we're almost certainly there before the end of the year. Yeah, I'm not sure how many people would understand that, but
sounds good.
I should say also we are also confident of improving the frame rate as we delete some of the legacy neural nets. We think we might be able to get the frame rate of all 8 cameras maybe up to 36 FPS, which is actually a lot of frames considering it's 8 cameras. But certainly comfortably above 24 frames, which is basically the movie frame rate of movies.
Thank you. The next question is, Elon recently tweeted about lowering prices once inflation cools down. Can you elaborate on what do you mean by cooling down and how aggressively the company will lower prices? More broadly, how do you think about the auto pricing long term?
Yeah, so since we have there's a quite a long wait when somebody orders a car. In some cases, like six months. In some cases, it could be up to a year. We have to anticipate what the probable inflation rate is over that period of time. So that's what we're trying to do. When we see, when or if we see indications that the inflation rate is declining, then we would not need to increase our car prices. It's possible that there could be a slight decrease in car prices, but this is fundamentally dependent on macroeconomic inflation. It's not something we control. If I were to guess, and I wouldn't take this with a grain of salt, I think inflation will decline towards the end of this year. We're certainly seeing prices of commodities trending lower. But take it with a grain of salt. This is making economic prognostication is fraught with error. I don't know if you guys want to, do you want to say anything about?
Yeah, we're certainly seeing, I mean, it's kind of a whole spectrum. On the battery metal side, for example, the price of lithium has really shot up. We used to be $11 a kilogram to more than $80 a kilogram. But, it's not every situation is that bad. So it's kind of a spectrum.
Like carbon steel, aluminum, up to sweat. Carbon steel and aluminum has started trending down. We will see the benefits of it only probably later part of this year or early next year.
Yeah, but I think that's just like for most commodities, we're seeing a downward trend towards the end of this year or next year. Some commodities, the processing of lithium is insane. I'd like to once again urge entrepreneurs to enter the lithium refining business. The mining is relatively easy. The refining is much harder. So the lithium is actually a very common. There's like lithium pretty much everywhere, but you have to refine the lithium into battery grade lithium carbonate and lithium hydroxide, which has the extremely high purity. So it is basically like minting money right now. If you there's like software margins in lithium processing right now. So I would really like to encourage, once again, entrepreneurs to enter the lithium refining business. You can't lose. It's licensed to print money.
Thank you. The next question is, you made the right economic call before most on inflation when you diversified into Bitcoin. It has since shown it's not much of a hedge in the real world test in the last few months. How do you think about it as an asset over long term, and what do you need to see to change your view?
Well, Tesla is Tesla's goal is to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy. We're not really cryptocurrency is a sideshow to the sideshow. So we're not cryptocurrency is not something we think about a lot. We think a lot about scaling production and accelerating the advent of sustainable energy, which the record heat waves around Earth serve to emphasize the urgency of that transition. So that is what we're trying to do, is make electric vehicles and solar and stationary storage battery packs, but the three pillars of a sustainable energy future, which is like solar and wind for energy generation, stationary battery packs for storage of the solar and wind energy because of its intermittency, and then electric vehicles, the third pillar. And if those three things are solved, we have a sustainable future for civilization. And the fundamental good of Tesla, and the reason we're doing this, or certainly my primary motivation here, is to have the day of sustainable energy come sooner. That's our goal. We're neither here nor there on cryptocurrency.
Thank you. The next question on 4680. Elon noted that 4680 plus structural pack is not yet optimized. Can you please share the general path of 4680 and structural packs in terms of cost efficiencies and compared to the traditional 2170 pack? Will cost improvements be mostly due to scale, or do we need to solve some technical issues?
Should I start off?
Yeah, do you want to do the architecture?
Yeah. So structural pack, where we get dual use of the battery or the cells as structure and as energy storage, in the same way that an aircraft gets dual use of the wing as a fuel tank and as a wing, is, I think, unequivocally, from a physics standpoint, the superior architecture. So it's the A architecture. Now, because it is new, we'll start off getting, aspirationally a C within an A architecture. But the potential is there to get radically better and then unequivocally better than a battery pack, which is carried like a sack of potatoes. So
yeah, and we've gained the perspective through putting our first structural pack in production that it is actually the A architecture.
Yeah.
Like before we did that, it was a hypothesis that was backed with got a lot of modeling and first principles analysis, but now we've actually built it and are more confident in that assertion.
Yeah, so exactly. So the structural pack, even the C in the A architecture, is beating the non-structural pack. And so over time, it will, with further refinement, be substantially superior to a car that is carrying a battery pack as though it is cargo. And this, like I said, it's very, very much very analogous to the early days of aviation, where fuel tanks were initially carried like cargo until they realized actually you should get dual use of the fuel tank as a wing and as a fuel tank, and that makes the planes lighter and better. And the same is true of electric vehicles.
And on cost improvements, are they due to scale or about solving technical issues?
Both.
Yeah, it's always both.
Yeah, I mean, but really, the two things that improve cost are economies of scale and core technology.
So, yeah, I think technical issues are not the right.
Technical issues, like
It's like getting to the optimal design, right? Like you always start with some excess. Some people might call it fat, but that's not really what you think it is initially. It's that you don't know how lean you can get it until you've done it a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, there's some platonic ideal of the perfect product where the atoms, you have exactly the right atoms in there in exactly the right position, and you asymptotically approach this platonic ideal, and but it takes a lot of effort over time to figure out actually what is the platonic ideal, and then to actually gradually approach that.
Yeah, I mean, you might need to create a new alloy, then you need to figure out how to cast it, then you need to ramp the casting machine of the new alloy. As an example,
we did.
We've done it for rotors, we've done it for the casting, so but those take time.
Constant improvement is something we're used to here, and it's something like we've done with our vehicles and our designs since the beginning. I mean, even we were talking a couple of weeks ago, like the first version of the front casting that we made that went into the early vehicles is like
Model S days?
No, I'm talking about like our first Model S.
Oh yeah.
Since we've ordered more dies because we need more dies for more production, we've saved like 4 or 5 kilos of mass just in die iteration, and that's something we do at Tesla like quite regularly, and we'll continue to do. So like we're not happy with a C, like maybe we're at a C+ now because but like we got to keep going to get to
a B- ish on the rear casting, but this still tries room for improvement with the casting. So the casting is already way better than the rear body casting is already way better than the way it was done in the past, where you've got 120 different parts that are welded together or bonded together with different alloys, and then you have to put sealant in between all the various parts for water ingress and noise. So we're already way better than that with current casting, but there's still a lot of opportunities to reduce the mass of the casting and also extend the casting to include more parts, as well as adapt the rest of the vehicle for the fact that there's a casting.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, right? Like we're not just evaluating the pack in isolation either.
Yeah.
It's the pack plus the body, the integration. Do we have mass in the right places? Do we have the cost in the right places, and only just the right amount? And I think we've gone through one iteration. We're doing another one with Cybertruck. I mean, we're taking the learnings and doing the next version hopefully is a B+.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
In the A architecture. That's certainly the target.
Thank you. The next question is, how do you feel the progress of FSD is going, and does Andrej Karpathy's leaving have any significant impact on timelines or potential progress?
Well, since Andrej was writing all the code by himself, naturally things have come to a grinding halt. Insert irony. Andrej's awesome, and we have tremendous amount of respect for Andrej. He's decided to. I think he wants to contribute more to, I think, core AI at an academic level, and get back to coding individually. So, but we've got a team of about 120 people in our software AI group that are extremely talented, and I think we will have. I'm highly confident we will solve full self-driving, and it still seems to be this year. I know people, they're like, always says that, but it does seem to be like it does seem as though we're converging on solving full self-driving this year.
Thank you. The next question is, how is the 4680 ramp going, and is Giga Texas producing cells yet?
Yeah, so we are making progress on 4680, but right now, as Elon mentioned, we are leveraging supplier cells, which we have in sufficient quantity to ramp Texas and Berlin. We expect to ramp total 4680 production to exceed 1K per week by the end of the year, hopefully before, well before. In Q2 at Cato, we fully automated powder conveyance for the dry anode electrode tool there, unlocking major increases in production and improvements in yields. Since March, because of that, Cato output has grown 35% month over month each month since, and yields throughout the factory are already at targets in most areas and trending in that direction in a few others. We did feed learnings from Fremont cell and pack lines to Texas and Berlin. They aren't a carbon copy. Cell design was revved to unlock higher performance and manufacturing simplicity. Manufacturing lines were further integrated, and we insourced additional content. For these reasons, there are some new ramp challenges to overcome in Texas and Berlin. Specific to Texas last quarter, cell equipment was fully installed and commissioned, and we produced our first commissioning car sets of cells through the end of the line. Our target for Texas is to begin production this quarter and aim for Texas to be capable of exceeding Cato weekly output before the end of this year.
Thank you very much. The next question is on 4680 as well, but I think Drew has covered everything that was in the next question. So the following question is, with regards to the ramp of production in Austin and Berlin, how is the situation with regards to supply of semiconductors, battery cells, and other components? How about cost inflation impacting profitability of these other plants?
Smart. I can take that. So Tesla procures about 1,600 unique pieces of silicon from 43 semiconductor companies. So with a portfolio of that size, there are always challenges. Things are more stable on the latest generation chips. We still see some tightness in the older generation semiconductors, especially in the analog and mixed signal space. But we have line of sight to solve for the volumes being contemplated for both Austin and Berlin. And on the cell front, like Elon mentioned, we have a comfortable margin thanks to record output from our partners and have line of sight that matches the planned output from both factories. We've grown cell production significantly on a 12-month rolling basis and have long-term contracts with all our partners for key battery metals. So we don't see any major problems for the components, of course, barring unforeseen COVID-related shutdowns.
Okay. Just to add on the profitability part of the question, Q2 was our largest increase yet over the last handful of quarters on inflation and commodity-related increases to our cars. It's fairly evenly spread across the factories, given common suppliers or common issues that impact the broad supply chain. So I think I had mentioned before that we had been seeing increases over the course of last year. It ticked up in Q1 and then it ticked up again. The rate of increase was more in Q2. So as we look through to the end of the year, what we're seeing is we don't think the inflation-related increases in Q3 will be as big as Q2. But as Elon had mentioned, there's uncertainty on pricing here. And we don't have full exposure, as Karin had just mentioned, on every component of cost, because we do have some contracts in place, but there are some spot buys as well, and some contracts being renegotiated. So, we're managing it with pricing and in partnership with our suppliers, but it does continue to be something that is impacting our financials.
Okay, thank you very much. And the last question is, when will the Cybertruck be officially available?
We're hoping to start delivering them in the middle of next year.
Great, thank you very much. And now let's go to analyst questions. The first question comes from Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research. Pierre, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi guys, thanks a lot for taking my question. I'd like to ask a question on 4680 and the structural battery pack. And I'd love to understand where you stand on the technology and efficiency and energy density roadmap that you described at the Battery Day. So what I'm trying to understand is, where do you stand on the architecture of the battery cell itself? How much silicon do you have in it? How much energy improvement have you achieved already so far? The reason I'm asking, sorry?
Go ahead.
And the reason why I'm asking that is because you have very smart guys on Twitter who shared experience about trying to fully empty a Model Y from Texas, from Austin, and noticing behaviors and recharging behaviors that suggested that maybe these cars had very, very high mileage, very high range, and were artificially limited in range in software. So I'm just kind of trying to understand how much of an edge you're building at the moment with the 4680 and the structural battery pack on range.
Yeah, let me try to provide like a super straightforward answer. Like as Elon mentioned before, our priority was really on simplicity and scale during the initial 4680 and structural battery ramps. So we weren't like putting all the bells and whistles in from day one, because if so, we would be sort of suffering under a string of series miracles that we would need to achieve to get going. But as we attain the manufacturing goals that we've stated, hit the ramp that we need to hit next year, we are certainly planning to layer in new material technologies and higher range structural packs. Like we're not like holding back goodies for some rainy day or something like that.
Yeah, maybe another way of putting it is that our focus right now is on basically dozens of little issues that inhibit the production ramp of the 4680. Some of the more challenging ones have been feeding the anode and cathode material, because we were using this revolutionary dry electrode process. But when something's revolutionary, it's a lot of unknowns that have to be resolved. So we're confident of resolving those unknowns, but it's very, very difficult. We're making rapid progress on that front. So the first order of business is really get the basics right, get to high volume and high reliability, and then very rapidly iterate within that to enhance the energy density and reduce the cost of the cell. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I'd say we are highly confident of a good outcome. It's the exact counterpoint to that is perhaps it is of some debate, but the outcome is not.
Yeah, and specific to the dry process, we made a major advance this past quarter in Cato that the team is really excited about, and congrats to the team for achieving that.
But I should also emphasize that it is not as though Tesla intends to displace our suppliers of battery cells. The Tesla battery cell production is in addition to what our suppliers can do, and we want our suppliers to grow their battery output as fast as they possibly can, and that goes for the entire supply chain. The fundamental rate limiter for Earth transitioning to sustainable energy is how fast can you grow lithium-ion battery output per year. This is the fundamental rate limiter for Earth transitioning to sustainability, because you need the batteries for two of the pillars of sustainability: the stationary storage and for vehicles.
Yeah, and I just want to stress that a lot of these, higher energy density technologies are not necessarily scalable. I mean, most of them are not scalable from what I've seen. And so like focusing on them is a distraction from the mission. Like it really is, how do we scale as fast as possible? And, we're taking these risks that we've discussed at Battery Day, and our plan is as we de-risk them and they are successful, we want to bring them back to our partners so that they can go faster too, because that's all on the mission, right? Like, how do we accelerate?
People often ask me if is some breakthrough needed in battery technology for the world to transition to sustainability. The answer is no. Even if there was zero technology breakthroughs, literally zero, from where the technology is right now, we could fully transition Earth to sustainable energy. The issue is very much the rate at which the entire supply chain, from mining to refining to cell production, how fast can that grow? It's growing fast, but the faster it grows, the faster we transition to a sustainable energy economy.
This is actually a great, exactly where my follow-up is. So, Elon, you always mention, this 50% per annum sustainable growth target that you guys have, and so my question here is, when we see like the difficulty regarding like commodities, raw materials, swinging prices, I'm kind of wondering, as you are planning for this 50% per annum growth, if we stand today over the next 5 to 10 years, how much of that do you feel you've secured through your work at entering into long-term contracts and things like that? And you were calling for entrepreneurs to go into the lithium business. And so does that mean you don't have enough lithium secure to grow 50% per annum over multiple years? And what's how much of that is secured today, and how fast can you improve that, basically?
Well, I think it's very difficult to predict anything 10 years from now. I hope civilization is still around, frankly. I would count that as a win.
It's not that funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day.
Hopefully we haven't had World War III by then.
Or the Earth isn't burned up.
Yeah. We do see constraints in refining of the materials necessary for lithium-ion batteries. I do want to emphasize it is not due to a scarcity of the raw material. In the case of lithium is one of the most common elements on Earth. It's pretty much everywhere. But refining of the lithium into ultra-high purity battery-grade lithium hydroxide and lithium carbonate is quite difficult and requires a massive amount of machinery, and it's a hard thing to scale. It is also difficult to create the anode and cathode. I think my guess is maybe 2/3 of batteries will be iron phosphate, or maybe iron phosphate with some manganese. And there's a ridiculous amount of iron on Earth. In fact, Earth is a little bit of trivia. Someone says, what is Earth made of more than anything else? Iron. Iron is the number one ingredient of Earth by mass. Number two is oxygen. Yeah, which is wild. But yeah. Oxygen's basically rust. You stuck them together. We're a rust ball. That's almost 2/3 of Earth, I think, is rust. We are like a rusty ball bearing, with a little bit of other stuff. But plenty of lithium. So anyway, there's not like a shortage of materials.
Another thing on that LFP thing is it isn't just that there's more access to material that way. The actual refining process is less capital intensive to make a good LFP cathode. And so it's not just scalable on the resource side, it's scalable on the refining side.
Absolutely. To be clear, there's no fundamental barrier here. It's simply a rate question. Like at what rate can you scale production?
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a very rapid increase in battery production, and in the whole supply chain. If you were to say today, what are concerns? A few years down the road, I would say one of the concerns is the machinery to refine the critical ingredients of lithium-ion cells. So the lithium itself, and then the cathode, which like I said, will be mostly iron phosphate, perhaps with some manganese. I think almost all stationary storage will be iron phosphate, and then you really just need nickel chemistry for long-range vehicles and like aircraft and that kind of thing.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is, we're working with our suppliers to ramp their capability as quickly as possible. And it's not like we have a problem in the next year or two, to specifically to your question. But when we look 10 years out, we need to do more to accelerate the growth. And that is why we are making our own investments. Like we are building a cathode facility here in Texas. The steel is going up. You can see it in the flyovers. We're working on lithium refining activity as well ourselves, because the best way to learn how to accelerate something is to do it yourself. So these are the things we're doing to move it all forward.
Yeah, I mean, if our suppliers don't solve these problems, then we will. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question comes from Emmanuel Rosner from Deutsche Bank. Emmanuel, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have a question on your vehicle demand and then a quick follow-up on supply. First, on the demand side, are you seeing any sort of pressure in the order book or the pace of new order, or any sort of like slowdown as a result of the pressures that the consumer is experiencing? Are you worried about it in light of your view of the risk to the economy that I think you expressed, Elon?
Well, right now our problem is very much production. So we've long leads on, as anyone can tell if they order our car. It, you know, if you order Model Y, it will arrive sometime next year. So this is clearly not an issue for many months for us. Our problem is overwhelmingly that of production. So, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe just two things to add. You know, specifically on your question, are we seeing a macroeconomic impact on our demand? Not that I can tell. Maybe a little, but
some maybe, but it's
not
yeah.
material. The second thing, you know, to Elon's point about backlogs, you know, we have a very long runway with very long lead times here. I mean, certainly the world is uncertain, and we'll have to see where things go with commodity prices, how quickly we're ramping production, what the state of the world looks like at some point next year. But the demand is not something we spend really any time talking about.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe just once again worth mentioning that there is a difference between value for money and fundamental affordability. Because sometimes people say, well, if you got all this demand, why don't you just raise the price to some, you know, double the price or something? And this is usually expressed by somebody who's rich. So but there's, even if you rail value for money to infinity, if consumers do not have enough money to buy it, even a product where the desirability is railed to infinity, they simply cannot buy it. So this is why you cannot just raise prices to some arbitrarily high level, because you pass the affordability boundary and then the demand falls off a cliff. So I do feel like we've raised our prices, or we've raised our prices quite a few times. They're frankly at embarrassing levels. But we've also had a lot of supply chain and production shocks, and we've got crazy inflation. So, you know, I'm hopeful. This is not a promise or anything, but I'm hopeful that at some point we can reduce the prices a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay,
Emmanuel, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, my follow-up was actually on the supply side. So it was very encouraging to see that you're quantifying your current installed capacity at basically already in excess of 1.9 million units installed currently. How quickly do you think that you can fill that capacity?
Well, I mean, we you know, I think we've got a good chance of exiting this year at 40,000 vehicles a week.
Yeah, I mean, our internal plans are to have the capacity utilized by the end of the year. It takes time to ramp there. It'll be a challenge. There's a lot that needs to happen to get there, but that's what we're working on.
Yeah, we've had many 30,000 car weeks already, so I think a 40,000 car week is within reach by the end of this year.
Shanghai and Fremont, as we said last month, were record production, and they're really firing. It's a bad term. Doing really well.
Yeah.
But then Austin and Berlin are coming on strong. Theoretically, they also had record quarters last quarter. And if we ramp them to the capacity shown in the deck, by the end of this year, we'll be at that rate.
Yeah. But there's always a lot of uncertainty, and you know, like in the production ramp looks like an S curve. And that intermediate part of the S-curve it's very difficult to predict that with high certainty. But the end part of the S-curve, you can say, I think you can have a lot more certainty. And so that's why I'm confident we'll get to 5,000 cars a week at in Austin and Berlin. By the end of this year or early next year, and probably, but not certainly, 10,000 cars a week at both locations by the end of next year.
Thank you. The next question comes from Colin Rush from Oppenheimer. Colin, go ahead, please.
Thanks so much, guys. Could you talk a little bit about the pricing strategy around FSD and as you get closer to this full functionality rolling out and the increased cycle times, how you see that evolving through the balance of this year and into 2023?
Yeah, we will. We will increase the price of FSD sometime later this year. I think probably just before we go to wide beta. Where wide beta is, anyone who wants to use the beta software with all the caveats associated with that can use it. Then it would make sense to increase the price of FSD. The value of FSD is, I think, extremely high and not well understood by most people. It is basically currently ridiculously cheap, assuming FSD materializes, which it will.
Great. And then sorry to belabor a little bit on this battery materials side, but in terms of some of the suppliers and the contaminants, can you be a little bit more specific around some of the elements that you guys see in some of your supply chain that can prove troublesome on yields for the 4680s, particularly around lithium and potential contaminants in either the hydroxide or the carbonates that you guys end up seeing real issues with as you move into production?
Yeah, I don't really think we have anything to comment on. Yeah, the purity specs of lithium on this call right now. Yeah,
contaminants for the 4680 are not a factor. This is not an issue.
Thank you very much. The next question comes from Tony Sacconaghi from Bernstein. Tony, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you for taking my question. I have two as well. In response to the question around demand, I think, Zach, you said maybe a little, and Elon, you said maybe some indication that you might see some pressure on demand. And I'm wondering if that is really just speculation or whether there's any empirical data that you saw in the last month, whether it be cancellations or order lead times, that led you to make that comment. I think anecdotally, if you squint, the lead times have gotten a little lower over the last 4 months in both China and the US. That's really the only visibility investors have. So I'm wondering if you could maybe elaborate on whether that's really just your sort of anticipating there could be some impact because of high prices, or whether there is something anecdotally or quantitatively that you could point to, please.
I think we've said this now for many years, and it is proven true. Tesla does not have a demand problem. We have a production problem, and we've pretty much almost always had it with very rare exception. It's always been a production problem. I think that will remain the case.
Also, there's a denominator and a numerator, and
if you increase production.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As we increase production, more demand is needed. Obviously.
Well, it's more just you can't look at the backlog and state much about demand because we're doing a lot on the other side to change the production.
We're trying to make the backlog lower, not longer.
It's like building factories and building more equipment.
We don't want a long backlog. That's annoying. It'd be like go to a restaurant and you order a burger and you have to wait 3 hours. I'm like, that's annoying. You want to get your burger right away. Same with the car. So we want the lead times to reduce.
Okay, thank you. No, I was just trying to follow up on the fact that you both said that maybe you were seeing demand be impacted a little bit, and that was the spirit of the question. Maybe
Yeah,
I can.
I can say like we don't have like because we see daily orders from around the world for our cars. It's actually it is like a mood barometer of people's confidence in the economy. But one can't read too much into it because things can vary a great deal from one day to the next. Consumer sentiment is all over the map. So it's manic. I was manic depressive, frankly. But we have so much excess demand that it's really just not an issue for us. It might be an issue for some other companies, but it is not an issue for us.
Okay, thank you. Elon, I'm just wondering a question for you. Tesla's obviously changed dramatically in the last 3 years from, near life or death to a company with, consistent cash flow and industry-leading margins. I'm wondering if you can comment on your personal role in the company and whether you see that changing in terms of your role or your commitment and time spent at the company over the next 3 or 4 years. I think you said a few calls ago you wouldn't be on calls and unless there's something unusual, and you've been on every call since then. I'm wondering how
There's been a lot of unusual things. Let's face it.
So I'm just wondering about
basically, if there's only good news, I won't be on the call. but if you have like a tough situation like COVID shutdowns in China, then I think I'll be on the call. If relatively speaking, there's bad news, and if all we have is good news, then I won't be on the call. But I'm committed to the long term. I mean, I'll work at Tesla as long as I can usefully advance the cause of sustainability and autonomy.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. The next question comes from William Stein. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Great. Thank you very much for taking my question. Elon, in the past, you've given some assessment as to the likelihood that you can achieve success in some of the more interesting AI-oriented efforts, not only FSD, but also Dojo and Optimus. Perhaps you can give an updated view on those.
Well, I don't want to steal thunder from AI Day. So I think we'll have some exciting news on AI Day that I think will be further ahead than probably most people think. But I don't want to. I'd love to answer you, but I think we'll leave that excitement for AI Day.
Okay, and perhaps a follow-up if I can. We've heard a lot from others, and certainly to some degree from you all, about the shortages in semiconductors in particular. We have seen some, big important customers of that type of product decide to sort of, leverage the ecosystems that exist to make some of their own in those categories. I'm wondering to what degree you're doing that. It's outside of Dojo in terms of the, I guess on the inference side, you're certainly doing that in the car. But what about sort of the more mundane areas like microcontrollers and the like? Is there any internal effort to improve supply chain and maybe improve other performance aspects?
Well, there's a lot we've done. We've been working with our suppliers a lot. We don't currently intend to make chips ourselves. We don't think there will be a need to make chips, but we have been working closely with a number of suppliers. Actually, just met with one of our key supplier CEOs right before this call. We had a great meeting. They're going to make major investments in some of the critical chips and components that we need in the car. And I've actually like take a moment to thank our key suppliers once again for supporting us through difficult times, and they really went above and beyond to support us. So to all our suppliers out there, thanks very much.
Yeah, and I guess just maybe we don't talk about it very often, but we do have a lot of custom silicon in the vehicle already. Microcontrollers, yes, some. Battery management, yes, some. Power electronics, yes, some. So we try to go after where there's actually a technical advantage. And in the future, I think we're going to look at where there's a supplier advantage as well, even supply chain advantage.
Even now, where there's supply chain issues with our tier 1s and tier 2s, Karn and Roshan get into it with us on the engineering side, and we find solutions, whether it's alternative chips or, changing the entire structure of the stack to make it work. And I think that's an advantage we have that many other OEs just simply cannot.
Yeah, I think Tesla is as much a software company as it is a hardware company, and so one of the ways that we've been able to address supply chain issues on the chip front is by rewriting our software to be able to use different chips, or in some cases achieve dual use of a single chip, which is even better. And actually, quite frankly, the chip shortage served as a forcing function for us to reduce the number of chips in the car.
Simplify.
Yeah, it turns out we had more chips than we needed. So, but it's a testament to our software team that we're able to roll a new chip into the car and write a whole new batch of software for that chip, and without interrupting production.
Yeah, and our goal is, as we mature and scale the platforms, to integrate more functionality into fewer chips. Like, that is the way that it's gone with laptops and phones. It's going that way in cars, and we're trying to do that wherever it makes sense to do it.
Yeah,
as quickly as we can.
I mean, from a supply chain standpoint, what do you think about chips and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, from a high level, instead of designing and building our own microcontrollers, we're partnering with key partners that understand the architectural requirements, and they'll take the specs and design something for us. We've done that, to your point, Drew, in the battery sensing space. We've got some application-specific ICs. But yeah, integrating, reducing the number of components, it makes the supply chain easier, but it also makes the reliability of the end product better, because there's less failure points. So that's always been the mantra.
At times, we also go at the wafer level and try to consume less to achieve the same functionality. So that's something also that we've been looking at in some of the constrained modules that we've faced in the last 6 months.
That's good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all of your questions. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have this quarter, and we will speak to you again in 3 months' time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
Go away, screen. All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Wow.
I'm gonna bring up the notes.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Wow.
That was one of the most professional ones I've seen with Elon, I think, ever. I don't know if you guys agree, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Can you share? Can you make this accessible to anyone with the link? Because
yeah, I put it on the comments already.
Yeah,
I think we just need to
load.
shout out Farzad's typing abilities.
Yes.
That was incredible.
100%.
Change it from restricted to anyone with.
Thank you. Oh, really? My bad. Oh, sorry. Let's try it again.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I've typed a lot in my life.
Your pace and the spell check while you did it, it was just, I was like, man, I can type that fast, but you're going to see lots of red everywhere.
Thank you.
And not just that, your organization as you were doing, it's like, wow, all right.
Oh my God, you guys are too nice. You guys are way too nice. Thank you. Yeah, I've typed a lot. I've typed a lot in my life, and a lot of World of Warcraft helped earlier in the day. A lot of games, a lot of PC games, and then it was just note taking. Yeah, man. But yeah, what do you guys think? What are your initial thoughts?
A lot to unpack.
Yeah. I need to listen to this call several more times.
I love that they're still expecting 50%. They said that on the call. We're still expecting 50% growth this year. So good.
I mean, just because it's one of the last things that were said that's fresh in my mind. That Optimus,
Very
I guess,
dense.
will be further than what people expect. Like it's like like I know what I'm expecting. Like what does further mean? You know, like you could sit on that one for a while, but yeah, no, his call was so well done. So much goodness in this.
Yeah, very professional. Let me see where the stock is. So the stock is at 748. So we ended the day green. So about what, 1.5% up since market day open. If you combine, okay, so yeah, kind of a muted response. But I mean, that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's a pretty big win, I think, given how many people were expecting Q2 to not be great. I think all things considered is actually that I'm just so happy with the tone of that call. It was just so well done. You could tell everybody was like, there was zero panic, there was zero negativity, there was zero like any sort of there was a lot of confidence. There was reiteration of all the things they were saying that was going to go well for the company. It continued even in the face of a tough quarter. Andre leaving, they were super respectful, and they clearly parted ways in the best way possible for both parties. And Elon reiterated just how stacked they are with talent. It's almost like in every single question that was like borderline idiotic, it was answered very professionally and concise, you know, and very clear.
And they were so open too with all their answers to the questions. And, you know, other than the one that they didn't want to spill the beans on AI Day, like they went into so much incredible detail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought the most fun part was, you know, because Andre wrote all the code.
Yeah. That was the one part I would say was maybe unprofessional or just like a little bit slipped out. Was that? It was just that. It was like, yeah, because he did it all, so now we're screwed. It's like, this is amazing. That was amazing.
If Elon's on the call, there's got to be a bit of Elon, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what am I doing here, guys?
What are you deleting?
I don't know, bro. So I'm just going through the notes and highlighting the things that I thought were important from my end. Elon thinks inflation will decline towards the end of the year. I think that's a good signal for the broader economy and the market that says, hey, one of the major manufacturers in the world now is saying that they're seeing trends from a macro perspective where inflation's going down. I think that's a positive signal for the market.
Yep.
To double down on that, keep in mind, Elon may suck on timeline with FSD, but he called when this recession would hit to literally the month of the year, right? So if he's saying this, you can't not listen to the guy at this point.
Yeah.
He also said, they also said like the force majeure thing is over. The rest of 22 looks good, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as far as they can see,
right.
But they're still like they were still given a little bit of
unforeseen lockdowns.
Yeah.
I got confused with the C. Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I got confused with the C and the A architecture. I'm like, what are they talking about?
I think they were talking about 2170 instead of 4680.
But like, what
right?
does C
Unless I'm
mean?
misunderstanding.
What C was A?
So
I thought it was structural versus non-structural, and C was the C architecture is like, you know, the non-structural pack, which essentially hangs onto the frame, whereas the A architecture is the structural pack. But they haven't optimized structural pack to be the best version of it that it can be. So within all architectures, structural is definitely an A, but within the world of what structural packs can be, it scores a C. And they want to move it up to B+, and
so is it like A, B, C? Is it like grades? Like
yeah.
School? Okay.
Yeah. So the way I like to, I mean, this is more for the audience. You know, imagine you're a engineer at Ford, and Ford is a C manufacturer. But then that A engineer goes to Tesla, and Tesla's an A manufacturer. But maybe that engineer is now just a C engineer, right? So that means that C engineer now has room to grow because, you know, there's more runway. And Tesla or Elon talks a lot about this with the neural nets, right? A lot of the 2 steps back, 1 step forward is because we go from a, C-level architecture where we were at kind of the peak at an A, but now we're in an A-level architecture and we may be a C, but that means we have a lot more room for progress. So lot of good stuff there, the way he said it.
But did you hear the burn on Ford that he laid? Like it might, demand might be a problem for some marquee manufacturers. You're talking about it earlier.
GM, the Hummer.
That was an interesting,
Yeah.
That was a super interesting comment.
Oh, come on. She led. She's got infinite demand.
It
Mary
matters.
Barr's on my shit list right now, dude. I'm not even going to make fun of her. She pissed me off. There was another comment too about a bunch of talk about constant improvement engineering and working on technology with 4680. So right now they're focusing on rampability and reliability when it comes to the batteries. So what's super interesting is if we were again look at the gross margins for the quarter at 28% automotive. So this is Shanghai shut down, Berlin and Austin not ramped, and 4680 not in its optimal state of lowest cost possible. So there's still a ton, and this is without even talking about FSD price going up and it being expanded to even more people, which is going to increase demand. So there's yet more signals that say that this number right here by the end of the year, I mean, especially Q1 of 2023, how much higher can this number go? This could be another 10 basis points, 10 percentage point increase potentially with all these factors going in. Then you have a mass market vehicle maker making 37-40% margins on their cars. That's completely bananas. That's completely crazy.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Completely crazy.
I love that they answered the unified vector space question.
Yeah. What did it only 0.01%?
Yeah. You know what? I want to push back on Elon with that one. I think the majority of investors listening if you're an investor who's really big into Tesla and you're listening onto the earnings call, you cared about that.
Yeah.
I think,
So I think
look at us.
I think Elon meant institutionals.
Who cares about them?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I lost my AirPods died. I'm surprised it went that long. That was almost 3 hours.
Look at those. Are those the Apple ones?
No, these are Steel something? Steel series?
Oh.
Yeah, they got like a but I don't use this one. I just use this one. I know, dude, it's super fancy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I couldn't hear anything. Did I step in the wrong time or were you guys finished?
No, I had a squirrel moment. Go ahead.
Okay, no, you're good. You're fine. With Andre leaving, again, highly confident that FSD will be solved this year. He always says that, Elon says, but Elon confident that they'll get resolved this year. So that you get yet again another reiteration we talked about before the call. That would be nice to hear. The fact that it was reiterated was, to me, I was very happy to hear that. And he, again, was very confident about it. So that was super good to hear.
Yeah, and the later in the year you hear that, the better it is, because it's saying, okay, now it's 5 months out, and I still think it's on track.
Exactly,
and that's why I was saying that. I mean, now that we're into this back half, I mean, he just seems so confident about it. That's gotta make you feel bullish. And to talk about kind of the back and forth with the verbiage that he was using, he literally said solving full self-driving.
Well, but he also, it seemed like, defined that as wide release in the United States. So in his mind, we can say what he's saying that we're going to get by the end of the year is wide release beta in the US.
Yes.
And he said,
I think Mike said, right?
Yeah, and he said with the associated caveats, so I'm assuming that means you still have to pay attention. You're still going to be tracked with the camera. You still get strikes, maybe some kind of timeout if you misuse it, so.
Yeah.
But no safety score, I'm guessing.
Yeah, because if it's going to be wide release, it's just going to be any. I mean, you'll if anything, it's going to be a service to those that have less than say 80 safety score. You're getting a bad driver off the road.
Yeah, they'll become a better,
or whatever that number
driver.
is.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm going through the notes and I'm trying to highlight anything else that stuck out to me. In the comments section, let us know what stuck out to you guys. Drop comments and let us know what stuck out. If anything comes to mind, let me know as well.
The other one that jumped out to me was the 36 frames per second on FSD. That, it's doubtful that they need 36 FPS in order to operate FSD. So the fact that they have the headroom to process that many frames of video per second is a good sign for hardware 3. There's been a lot of speculation back and forth whether or not FSD will require an upgrade in hardware over time. And it seems like, at least for right now, we're trending towards hardware 3 being sufficient.
Which is good because it does take time to switch over to new hardware, I'm assuming.
Well, and a lot of retrofits.
Yeah, and maybe even redoing the code so that it's more optimized for the new hardware. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think getting rid of heuristics will help make it more efficient, which they kind of said in a roundabout way. But this leads to something that I was wondering when I was driving. Is it a FPS issue to get less jitter? Is it a not being in vector space? Is it all the cameras having to agree? Is it a CPU ready time issue? I mean, when you're driving, it's really hard to pinpoint what it is because you can sense there's a slight lag with FSD whenever it wants to do something. And it's like, man, if we could just get rid of that. I think Farzad, you're the first one that really said this in a way that I was like, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. If we could just get rid of that lag, that jitter, oh my God, I think it would be so much better.
So do you think it is actually frame rate, or do you think it's the software agreeing with itself on what it sees so that it can decide what it should do?
I think it's the latter.
I
think it's a ladder because frame rate. You really think about that. I don't think it's in the millisecond sort of space. I think it's more in the hesitancy of the It's around the how safe it is. It thinks it can maneuver is because it's purely driven by the acceleration of the vehicle. It's not about where it's pointing necessarily, but it's about, should I cross this intersection now? Should I move up closer to this car? And it's all that acceleration pedal, which is
longitudinal,
tied to safety. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So I personally don't think it's a frame issue. I think it's a safety confidence. I think.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So what I thought when Hans was just saying that is just a decision making. And to me, the more we can up the FPS, then it gives it more data to make a decision, right? So it's more data. Now I have a better understanding of my environment. I can make a decision sooner.
Oh,
right.
I see that.
That's how I was thinking about it.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't hurt.
I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely won't hurt for sure. Yeah, I could see that too. There's more data, but I also wonder how much of it is well, there is a range of how far away I am from this object, right? Mm-hmm. And right now the tolerance level is that, well, I need to be X feet apart from this object to be safe doing the maneuver, where maybe the additional data that they get over time, the neural net can say, well, it's not this far away, now it's this far away, or the opposite to make it go faster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just talking out of my ass, so I have no idea. But
yeah, Nick's point is a good one because 36 frames per second is 33% more frames per second than 24, and so you might feel that jitter. Well, it's an additional 8 frames over 24 frames. So
you're right.
Oh
no, I think it's 12.
No, 6. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's more. It's higher. Who cares?
It's 12. Yeah. Sorry.
It's even
Anyways, yeah. So you would get that. The computer would get much more data in the same amount of time in order to accelerate through that decision-making process.
So I probably oppose that with the simple thought that in the real world, the position of objects wouldn't change frame to frame as much when you go from 24 to 36, so as to really impact decision making, except when the blocker in decision making is calculating the speed of, let's say, an oncoming vehicle, or essentially the speed of another object. And I think the blocker right now, and this is something that Maybe someone like a James Dahmer can help understand better. But my understanding is that the key problem there is that they're using a bag of points for objects in motion, and that is really, really hard to reconcile, and that's what is causing that jitter. So I think one of the key things to unlock a solution to the jitter is going to be moving to a unified vector space where this entire reconciliation does not have to happen, which means that the data signals that are going, you're not having to choose between a bunch of data signals.
Mhm.
You've got one signal that you can confidently relay onto the UI.
It would be really interesting to know why Elon doesn't think that they need to have unified vector space in order to solve FSD, and whether or not the autopilot team agrees with him on that.
They have enough compute to make it happen.
They said at some point, they said
It's a good to have, right?
Yeah, they said at one point, like they're like, if we can like see the world properly, then it turns into like a simple, like coding a AI for a video game. It's pretty simple to navigate it. I don't know if that has something to do with this though.
No, I think the unified vector space is a more A, efficient, B, smooth process, architecturally superior, like Elon said. But at the end of the day, your requirements out of a system on a model is that you're able to see, identify objects, identify their position, their speed and directionality, and make decisions based on that information. Right. So if you look at the objectives of identifying objects, their speed, directionality, and velocity, the unified vector space is not the only way to solve it. Of course, it's probably one of the best ways to solve it. So yeah, I think that's what Elon meant, that solving FSD or making that decision, whether to, track a path and at what speed, may not require the unified vector space, but it's definitely, like we were talking before, like, it'll make it smoother, it'll make it maybe both the visualization as well as the, car movement, the acceleration a little bit better. But I don't think it'll change the ultimate decision. At least to a large extent.
I think him saying just like it's not that huge of a thing, it's gonna be like an incremental step, I think basically says that it's like it's been said, it's nice to have, but not necessary. I do want to bring attention to this line though, that I think this one is, in my opinion, now that I read through a lot more of the report, my opinion is that this is the most important line of the entire call based on what we all of us are excited about the stock price. Yeah, we're all long-term investors, but the thing that's going to create the fireworks, in my opinion, that has the biggest chance of creating fireworks is this line. Good chance we exit the year of 40,000 cars a week, but we've had many 30,000 car weeks already, which I think was a very interesting line. And so I agree. I think he's sandbag as well. So if I take 30,000 and I times it by 13, which is 13 weeks in a quarter, that gets us to 390,000 cars in a quarter. If I say halfway point and I say 35,000 cars, so think about getting to 40,000 by the end of Q4. So they're averaging about 35 in Q3. So 35 times 13, that's 455,000 cars a quarter, right? So I think it's realistic for us to start preparing in Q3 for a above 400,000 car quarter. And what is that going to do for financials?
Yeah, that's exiting the quarter at more than a 500,000 cars per quarter run rate.
That's correct.
520.
Yeah, roughly 520,000. That's right. Yeah. So I think the sandbag nature is going to be interesting to see if it's going to be Q3 or Q4.
But if we say that it's a smooth linear ramp from 30,000 today to 40,000 exit at the end of Q4, right? We get to about 910,000 vehicles built. And given that there have been about 550,000 vehicles that have been delivered in the first half, which means that about 1 million or so vehicles still need to be delivered to hit that 50% mark. Maybe 960,000. It's nearly there, but we're still sort of short maybe 50-60,000 vehicles. I think if they are to hit that 50% mark, the exit is going to be around 42 to 44,000 a week at the end of December.
Okay.
Hey,
And that's to get to
real quick.
50% year over year. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, just to close off the point with the nice bow that we were talking about before with the unified vector space. Elon did say, just a caveat, that he thinks that we'll get there by the end of the year. That was the initial question, will it be V11? But I just want to iterate that he said he thinks that we'll get there by the end of the year. So not to backtrack, but I just want to close off that point.
No, you're good. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see so people like Troy, Tesla, and others, how are they modeling their Q3? Those numbers are going to be bangers. Like, they're going to be absolutely nuts. I'm curious to see how this gets priced into the market for Q3. Especially around the verbiage of, okay, we see inflation going down for the second half of the year. Like, those two things combined should say, hey, Tesla's going to be making a ton of money in Q3. Like, are you pricing this into the stock? I don't know.
I hope they don't.
You hope they don't, so you can buy more.
Well, no, I'd rather have lower analyst expectations for Q3 so we can really blow it out.
Get an explosion, yeah.
They did say the second half of the year is going to be what they say, like amazing or whatever, or set up.
Yeah, they had some nice verbiage on that.
Yeah.
They said second excited exited Q2. Where is it? Did I even write it down?
Zach said it. It was Zach.
Oh. Position for record breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Record breaking.
Yeah.
Man, good thing we have this amazing typer over here.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm the internet secretary. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. What do they call in courtrooms?
The stenographer.
Oh, dude, have you ever seen how they work? Do you actually know how they work? It's like a combination of buttons creates words. It's the craziest thing of all time. It's so weird. It's like you press W, X, H, and R together, and it makes the word like fuck or something. I don't even know. But it's like you combine. It's so crazy.
Yeah, that's weird.
What is it called? Stenographer? Is it called?
Yeah.
Here.
I think so.
They actually use spell check as part of their, typing dynamic.
So while we go on this quick tangent, can we just take a moment to name another company that has people doing and it's not just us. Rob Bauer's doing it, Dave Lee's doing it, Steve Mark. I mean, everybody's doing this. Name another company that does this during an earnings call.
And has so many people watching, live, and afterwards. Yeah. It's crazy.
We peaked at 720 viewers at one point, which is a record for the stream. By the way, thank you all very much. I love you. Each one of these buttons. I love you guys too. We so that you program these buttons to a certain thing, and then you say you click this one, this one, this one, and this one together, and it creates a word. And you just go, and that's how you do words. You don't type. They're motions.
That's weird.
It's so crazy, and it's $900 if you want one.
And you have to learn. You have to learn how it works. It's crazy.
That's right.
Yeah, I highly recommend nobody pursues that career now. Just saying.
I know. Yeah. Text to speech to text. I guess
it's getting really good.
GPT-3.
Yeah, for real. And then I'm going through the last few lines here. I don't think there was anything else that was super mind blowing.
I feel like I liked when Zach said we've had substantial progress, other than a couple things going wrong, so far this year. And I feel like there's a lot that he's not saying specifically there, but there's probably a lot of stuff behind that statement. I like that.
Yeah.
Hans mentioned earlier in our chat about revisiting some of the 4680 battery stuff. There's a lot of numbers that were given there to unpack. I didn't quite hear exactly what Drew said, but I think he said 1,000 4680s a week, but I didn't know what 1,000 what 1,000 cells, 1,000 packs,
1,000 vehicles worth of batteries is how I took it by the end of the year.
Yeah. No, I think 1,000 vehicles with the 4680 structural coming out of potential Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They started, right? I think that's how I read it.
1,000 per week?
Yeah.
Yeah, out of Texas, I think specifically.
Yeah. When you wanted to re-listen to that part, maybe we could go back to that. It's like 30 minutes into the call.
If people want to do that, they can. I'm like about to like fall over. I don't know if y'all want to keep going, but I'm pretty close to collapsing here. We've been at it for 3 hours and 50 minutes. Maybe we'll do some closing thoughts. Oh, my mouse just died, I think. Oh no, it didn't. Did it die? No, it's good.
I guess
closing thoughts. Yeah.
One of the things that I did want to mention was I think that I heard Elon leave the door open that they do have dry battery electrode on both cathode and anode. And then, for those who follow Jordan Giesecke on the cell that was 6 months old that he was having torn down, they only had cathode, I believe, as anode. Yeah, cathode was not DBE and anode was. And so I think I heard Elon say, leave the door open that they were both DBE currently. So that's exciting. And then we'll see when Jordan gets the cell from Sandy Monroe and has that torn down. That'll be a pretty good indication of today's cell, whether or not they're both.
And to add to that, I think the fact that they are building a cathode factory now sort of indicates to me that they've probably had the breakthroughs that they need and have gathered the know-how that they need to actually scale up, dry electrodes for the country.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be building the new factory right now. I think they'd be waiting.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Any other closing thoughts? Anybody want to add? You summarized.
Yeah. Why do people
pointers?
keep asking about demand?
I know, right? For real.
Dear institutional analysts, very highly rated,
STFU.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was Emmanuel who asked, I think. Yeah,
multiple.
I mean, he's a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
highly
asked
rated
by
analyst.
what was it?
Saganaki.
What's his name?
Saganaki.
Tony, right?
Saganaki is like
Tony.
what? Some 60 or 70 on tip brands, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but they probably are not following the story nearly as close as we are. That's why they're asking that question, I think.
Yeah, not to have like Tesla blinders on or anything. To be fair, there was a moment of Zach and Elon. Elon had no reservations about demand, and Zach about with the inflation and everything. And then Zach did kind of, say like, yeah, we maybe see some signs. And, he gave an opening for that question, to be fair. And I would imagine at that table, Elon's looking at Zach like, I told you, don't say that. Like, I there was a pause after Tony's question. And I feel like Elon's like, yeah, see what you did? But, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, that, it's silly at this point.
I think, see, anytime that, okay, here's how I look at it, right? If you can get a Tesla early, in a time frame shorter than 6 months, that's when you start asking this question. Anything above that is just, wasting space.
Yeah,
wasting
and that's where. Yeah, and that's where I love Drew's comment about there's a numerator and a denominator, right? So if we increase the amount of vehicles, the fact that our lead times are going down, it's not an indication of anything. It's an indication that we're able to pump it out faster. So, but yeah, so I know we're trying to wrap up here. I'll just give a couple of my final thoughts. I thought from we'll just say a investor perspective, this is one of the most in-depth calls we've had in a long time. I had a lot of notes here. I highly recommend anybody who's, really wants to know about the future. If you're a long-term investor, and you just don't care, set it, forget it, that's cool. But if you really want to know about what's going on, go through. There's so many little things that they left for us to anticipate and just wonder. Like they talked about, they literally said, I have a quote here. We will bring another level of manufacturing to Cybertruck and future products not ready to talk about yet. Like they had so many of those little things going on that I lost count of them. This call was amazing. They opened the door for a lot of exciting things in the future. I cannot think of another company out there that I'm this excited about or that has this many exciting products coming out. Not Apple, not Amazon, not Microsoft, none. So those are really my thoughts, but I'll leave it at that.
Well said. Farzad, can you put the link to the earning notes in the what do you call it? The
description.
Yeah.
The description? Yeah, I got you.
And just one more thing to follow up on Ishan's comments regarding demand. They left it open. They said, we have more products. Like, we haven't started shipping Cybertruck yet. Like, the reason, they're extremely surprised even by the level of demand. And you can see that by the rollout of the products. They thought they were going to have to already ship the Cybertruck today in order to be able to fulfill the demand that they had. But demand for Model Y and Model 3 is so strong that they can't even get to Semi yet. They can't even get to Cybertruck yet because they can't even fulfill demand for 3 and Y. And so, talk to me about demand when Cybertruck and Semi are fully ramped. Until then, shut up.
Nice. I love that.
Mike,
what do you think?
I don't know. I feel good about Tesla. I feel good about the call. It was nice. Looking forward to another one. And looking forward to AI Day for sure.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for that. I'm gonna try and see if I can live stream the investor meeting. My father-in-law's coming in, but I don't know. There's going to be some conflicts there, so I'm curious to see if I'm going to be able to do that. But I'll definitely be live streaming AI Day, and I'm definitely going to be live streaming the second quarter and next coming. Are you going to the meeting?
Yeah, well, I better be one of your conflicts there.
You are. You absolutely are, my friend. Yeah.
I haven't gotten my ticket just yet, but I'm waiting for that to come through. So we'll see. Kim Parquette said it normally takes a little bit, but I know some have started to go out, so I'm just waiting.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Nick, real quick before we leave, you want to plug your stuff real quick before we wrap it up?
Yeah, channel's Investing Against the Grain. If you want it, check it out. We pretty much talk all things Tesla, different way of investing. I'm essentially in the campaign that I don't really believe in diversification, hot topic there. But I'm all in on Tesla other than the real estate I own. I'm financially independent, so a lot of my channel is talking about financial independence, about investing. I'm an engineer, so I throw in a lot of engineering stuff in there, especially when it comes to Tesla. It's kind of a nice bed for me, talking about mechanical, electrical, software. It all just kind of comes together, and then investing. And a shout out to my fiance who just left a comment there.
Biased.
This was cheating.
No, but Nick's stuff is great, man. It really him and I have chatted one-on-one before, and he really does a great job. Hans, Mike, and Ishan, do you guys want to plug any of your socials or anything you'd like people to check out?
Hans, Mike, if you will.
Yep.
I'm right here.
What's that?
I'm saying you guys can find me right here, off and on.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, Yashu just joined. Yashu, you joined literally when we're leaving, bro. Come on. Check out Hit That Bid. Look at that handsome young man right there. Our Canadian
Make sure you
brother.
bring your juju.
That's right.
Yep.
Bring your juju. All right, everybody. Before we leave, again, there is notes in the description for the call that we went through. Thank you all so much for joining us for our 3-hour, 23-minute, and 38-second stream. Thank you to our panelists, Nick, Hans, Mike, and Ishan. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the comments section for taking part of the conversation. And love you guys very much, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.